What is an absolute? Well, there's only one absolute, and that's the triune God of the Christian world. Somebody asked me, what is something that is absolute? And I told them the triune God of the Christian scriptures.
And then, of course, you have evidence of this, right?
Well,
the God of the Bible, the God who created the heavens, the earth, has revealed himself through natural revelation and special revelation. All facts indicate God, either individually or collectively, and God has revealed himself through the course of human history to various individuals, and it has been sovereignly and providentially recorded, and that revelation is self-authenticating and attesting. If one denies that, or if one simply does not accept the presentation of God's self-disclosure and revelation, that will either be an explicit or an implicit counterclaim, which my opponent will have to defend. There will be no further evidentiary support or rational justification given other than my opening statement, that the revelation of God and natural revelation and special revelation is necessary and sufficient to conclude that God exists. And the non-acceptance of it is not neutrality. It is an implicit counterclaim. And I'm done.
You know, I am a tree-hugging hippie pagan. You know, I don't mind admitting it. Come from a very long line of tree-hugging hippie pagans. But, you know, that doesn't stop you being rational. And that's one of the things I find quite strange when I deal with a lot of the more Darth Dawkins-esque Nephilim free types. And one of the ways I absolutely incensed good old Dawkins once was, you know, we were talking about the good old Amalekites, one of my favorites in the Bible, if you want to bash a Christian. And, you know, the slaughter of babies. And I literally just said to Darth, I said, you know, there's a difference between you and me and our morality. And he said, oh, what's that? And I said, well, mine is objective, whereas yours is subjective to the will of your God. Yeah. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if your God said, you know, go and kill these infidels, and you knew it was your God, you would go and do it, wouldn't you? You would obey your God, because it would be a moral act in your eyes, because he has commanded it. And he went, yes. And I said, well, that's the difference. If my God has said, come and slaughter babies, I'd say no.
Yeah. So fucking idiot, that fucking loser.
And he said, well, so your will is more than your God's? I said, no, my God has given me judgment to exercise. And if I feel that someone is wrong, when I have exercised my judgment, then that is my judgment.
Yeah.
The fact that you have an imperfect view of the world is not my problem.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know that's right? And I said, well, I can only hope that I'm right. But it's my intent that counts.
Until then, he's capable of killing babies, and you're not right?
True. Yeah. It's one of my three go-tos. That fallibility of man was my other favorite with him. If you ever want to have a really good argument with him, grant him the fact that, you know, his God can grant him information, you know, without any fallibility. You know, he can grant you any information he wants without any fallibility. Now, when you want to exercise the use of that information, do you not now have to employ your logic and your reason to do so? When you want to impart that information to another person or utilize it in your day-to-day life. But you already agreed previously in this conversation that you are fallible, as any human being is. So therefore, you could be wrong in how you're exercising that knowledge.
Yeah. I couldn't get through to him. I just said, oh, there's no proof of God, and he started fucking insulting me and shit, so I just left.
Oh yeah, that means that he's gone off script.
He likes to interrupt other people too.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I've had the other presuppositionist, Christian hillbilly. He came in and I said there's no proof of God, and he doesn't insult, but he cuts you off and shit. He won't let you.
Oh yeah.
That's why sometimes you gotta be firm to these people and be like, "Hey, Darth, stop being such a interrupting faggot." And then
Alex, let me tell you where you're wrong and where you have failed to where you failed to understand this very simple point. I believe this is one of his favorite insight go-tos.
Yeah. And I got Christian Hillbilly goes, "Oh God, there's no proof of God." He goes, "Oh, well, what is proof?" And I go, "Ask the scientists." And he goes, "Okay, I will ask the scientists."
Oh man!
And he ended it.
It's like, it's like, do you have any just form of justification whatsoever for your beliefs? And Darth has actually said to me sometimes that no, he doesn't. It's that Christian God exists is a premise that he starts from. He doesn't. He said that to me sometimes, right? That he doesn't argue to that premise. He argues from it.
Yeah.
Which for a theist is fair dues. I can't kind of go for that. But then again, what they can't then do is try and judge you on begging the question for starting from your foundational beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, I have these properly basic beliefs that I hold, and from what I can tell, they're grounded in my.
You say that a loving God was truly loving if he forces someone to love him back?
I think there's a distinction right there, Bunto. I think there's a distinction in what Bunto is saying, though. Because he's not saying for him to force them to love him. He's just saying to basically give them knowledge, basically. Like, hey, why don't you try to have a relationship? Like an actual relationship, not like a relationship where the only information we have is from what we read in the Bible, basically. Right? Like, hey, here's God in front of me, talking to me, having a relationship, telling me what he wants, saying how much he cares about me. That would be fair and honest. He doesn't have to force me to love him. He just needs to basically, would be nice if he would appear to me and actually have a conversation. If the consequences are so great, right? And the consequences, which are like our eternal hell and torture, even if it's just annihilation, it's still pretty bad, because this is an eternity of a relationship with God you're missing out on, right? This is the most amazing thing that could ever happen to you, to happen to your soul. And then you understand out on all that. Yeah.
Do you understand that you caused the separation between yourself and God when you sin?
So I'm that powerful? Well, yeah, exactly. And who set up that scenario, right? Because everything that exists within our reality is because of God. So if God created part of a reality that sin would separate us from him, whose ultimate fault is that?
Well, if you know what sin is, then it would be the sinner's fault, because sin is this is my opinion here, but sin is disobeying God's directive, disobeying God's order, or pretty much going against the word and the will of God, and his commandments, or his what he's laid out as rules. And if he puts these here for our safety and everything like that, I mean, for whatever reason, he puts them there, and we don't have to know why. It's just that when we do sin, we cause a separation, and we have to understand that him as a judge, he judges sin by death. One sin equals death. So he has given us grace by not being here and not judging us for our sins now, and giving us plenty of time and chance to repent of our sins and turn away from our sins, so we can be forgiven. Because if we have, here's the thing: when we get forgiveness with Jesus Christ and everything, when we're saved and we receive the Holy Spirit, our sin debt is wiped clean. Therefore, there is no reason for there to be separation. Therefore, there is no separation.
Well, there'd be no debt in the first place if you didn't create that system, though. I'm sorry to cut you off at the end. I apologize. But there'd be no debt in the first place if God didn't create a system in which debt could exist. And then also, how do I know what system is sin and what is disobedience to God without just assuming that the Bible is true? At least from the context of a Christian, right? I'm a deist. I believe in God.
You know what? You know what, Skylar? You said, how do I know? But you know what came to my mind? That's why it's faith.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, but that's fine. But that's not... I don't have a problem with a Christian having faith in a God. That's absolutely fine. You want to have faith in a God? Go for it, right? But it's kind of separated from what he was just arguing. because he's arguing that we know what sin is. That like he's almost begging the question, and I'm not trying to be argumentative in this, but like it's assuming in the premise that we know that what sin is, and that we know that there is sin, and we know that the Christian God is the Christian God, and that is our actual God here. So, but the bigger thing, I think the bigger picture, even if we get rid of all that, is if God had not set the debt of sin, the wages of sin would be death, then the wages of sin wouldn't be death, right? The wages of sin could have been anything God chose, right? He could have punished humans by, instead of an eternal hell, he could be like, well, I'm just going to separate you for 10 years, 10 human years from me, and then we'll work something out. But no, it's according to Christians, it's either like an nihilistic kind of view, which I respect a lot more, or it's this eternal hellfire.
Why is that a problem?
What, like in what sense? Like, why is it a problem to me? You want to know my personal opinion on it?
Why is it a problem that the Bible teaches eternal punishment?
Oh, well, because in my opinion, it's disturbing. It's actually very sick to punish somebody for all eternity for not believing.
Nonsensical, illogical.
Okay.
That's
all right, hold on. Do you assume that your reasoning is the final authority?
Here's what we're going to do, Darwin. I'm not going to allow you to ask me a bunch of questions. You can ask me 2 questions, so I'll give you this one and one more question, and then you have to let me ask you 2 questions. If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to do that.
Before you guys do that, I want to address what you said to me. It'd be really quick.
Please. Yeah, I did say something.
I love it how I ask questions and it's completely dodged and avoided.
Well, you never actually demonstrate your argument, but spoken. Let's let spoken because I did say something. I don't want to get too far away. Yeah, go ahead.
You guys can get right back to it afterwards.
Yeah, please.
But you were saying roughly along the lines of I had concussion, so forgive me. My memory's really bad.
No, it's okay. And if you need to clarify something, just ask. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Along the lines of like we know, or how humans just instinctually know what sin is. I just like to give a quick verse. This is Romans 2. I'm gonna start at Romans chapter 2. I'm gonna start at verse 13 and just go to about 16. I'm not gonna read to say it's just 2 verses. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law are a law unto themselves, which show the work of the law written in their hearts. Their conscience also bears witness, and their thoughts the mean while accusing or else excusing one another. So it's pretty much saying that the laws are written in our hearts as human beings, and yeah,
right.
That's why we know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's if you accept the Bible as an authority. I mean, we have to get to that point where you even accept that. But I get what you're saying. I understand.
Okay. Good. I asked you a question.
Sure. Like I said, you're going to get 2 questions. This one and one other one. And then I'm going to, if you agree, hold on, Darwin.
I heard what you had to say.
Okay, but I want to make sure you agree to these terms. But I want to, are you going to agree to these terms?
I heard what you had to say. Now, I asked you a question. Is your reasoning the final authority?
If you agree to my terms, which is you can ask me 2 questions, and then I'll answer
any questions you want. I'll be glad to answer them.
2 and 2. Okay, so your first question, please repeat.
Question: is your reasoning the final authority as to what is the case in reality?
Yes. Second question.
Okay, good. How do you know, given your finite limitations, that anything that you reason is true and correct and cannot be wrong?
Sure, because some things that I reason I can actually test and demonstrate. Okay, so now my turn for my question. You claim objective morals exist. I would like you to demonstrate objective morals exist in which...
I never said that.
You do not believe that objective morals exist?
I have never said that objective moral...
Okay. So then...
That's your first question. Next question.
Okay, good, beautiful. Please demonstrate that objective morals exist within the framework that you believe in the Christian God without asking me a question.
I didn't say that objective morals exist.
Didn't say that you did. I'm just asking you to do that, please.
Okay, well, I don't argue that objective morals exist.
Oh, okay, beautiful. Go ahead.
Okay, so those are 2 questions.
Sure.
Now, you said that you can test things in order to know that something is true and correct where you cannot be wrong, right?
Yes, 1 question. Go ahead.
Okay, good. No, I'm just clarifying what you were...
that was a question. Go ahead.
Okay, please don't be childish about this.
Well, I think that
I already asked the
morality, and I let you go on that.
You're being childish.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, I'll just go with it.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm trying to act like an adult here.
Okay. Go ahead. First question.
Good. Now, given your finite limitations, in terms of your observation and experience, in order for you to make rational conclusions about reality, would it have to be true that the uniformity of nature is true, and would it also have to be true that the laws of logic are universal and absolute?
I don't know. Next question.
Okay, then how can you, if you do not know, then what are the preconditions for you to rationally conclude that something actually is true where you cannot be wrong?
Yeah, there are certain things that we can test beyond a shadow of a doubt to find out if they're true or not. So my question is to you.
That did not answer my question.
That's not to you. I answered the question. It may not be to your.
Wait, what are these things that you can prove without a shadow of a doubt?
Hold on. No, we're going back and forth here. Yeah, I answered the question.
I'd like a clarification on that answer because that was vague. The clarification to that answer. Can you tell me one thing that you know is true where you cannot possibly be wrong?
One thing. Oh yeah, that I'm not your God. I'm not the Christian God.
Okay, how do you know
that? That's your question. That was your question. I answered
That's fine. That's fine.
All right. Do you believe in objective morality?
I believe that God's character is immutable, and we all are obligated because God says so to comport ourselves with His character. Now, my question to you is this.
No, I get two questions. That was the first one.
Go ahead.
You didn't say yes, it was objective. So is that so I want to clarify because you didn't actually answer the question. I asked you if morality was objective, and you didn't answer. You just talked about God's nature. So
no, I told you I don't argue. I don't use phraseology such as objective morality exists. I've already explained that to you several times.
Yeah, but I'm not asking you what kind of language you use. I'm asking you by definition is by definition God's morality objective? That was the question.
God does not have morality. God's character is an objective fact of reality, and we have an obligation to comport ourselves with His character because He says so.
I'd like you to demonstrate that.
Okay, no, because He says so.
I'd like you to demonstrate that.
Okay, no, because He says so.
I said I'd like you to demonstrate that.
Good. Now,
for my second question.
Okay, good. The answer that it demonstrates it because He always tells the truth and He cannot be wrong. Now, you said you know you're not God. Is that by virtue that your reasoning is reliable?
It's by definition.
Okay, why should I accept your definition?
You don't have to. I'm just using the Christian definition.
Okay, good. So you can. So in other words, you're giving me a definitional defense, and you can't demonstrate that it is the case that you are not God.
Oh, I can demonstrate it. You're just not going to accept the demonstration.
Okay, is your demonstration that you are not God by virtue of your reason where you cannot be wrong?
By definition, I can't be wrong on the specific thing.
What do you mean, you can't be wrong?
Because if I was your God, right? The example you use is God can't lie. Well, I'm not your God. If I was your God, I would now be lying to you by saying that I'm not your God. So by definition, God, I can't be your God. So I can. So we can all know. And I just demonstrated. Is there anybody in this room that disagrees that I've not demonstrated that I am not your God?
Are you arguing by virtue of the law of non-contradiction?
I am arguing by definition that I am not your God, and that is one thing that I can know.
Okay, I asked you a question.
Can you define the law of non-contradiction?
Hold on a second. I will repeat the question that he did not answer.
Okay.
Is your argument founded and rooted by virtue of the law of non-contradiction?
Is it rooted in the law of non-contradiction? I believe contradictions are invalid, and then I think that that is invalid for me to say
I'm
that.
not asking you what you believe.
Okay. Well, maybe clarify what you mean by your statement, because I don't. Maybe I'm not understanding.
I'll ask you the question: is your argument that you know something for certain, based upon the law of non-contradiction, is absolute and universal?
I don't think I've made a assertion that the law of non-contradiction is universal.
I didn't ask you if you made an assertion. I said, is your argument that you are using, is it dependent upon the law of non-contradiction?
No, it's dependent on both of us agreeing to the same terms that.
No, it has nothing to do
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. You're talking over me. So it's dependent on the fact that we both agreed that contradictions are invalid. If we both agree, I'm not done talking. I'm not done talking, Darwins. I'm not done talking. Thank you. So it is dependent. I appreciate that. So it is dependent on the idea, in order for me to prove my argument and demonstrate it, that we have some basic assumptions we agree on. If we both agree that contradictions are invalid, and I can show you a actual contradiction, then we both agree it's invalid, and that's what my argument falls onto.
Okay, you and I do not share basic worldviews, so there is not a substantive agreement. Now, I'm going to ask you.
This is your second question.
No, that's not my second question. I just made a statement. That's all.
Your first
statement is not. You know what? I would appreciate having an adult conversation with you instead of you acting like a teenager.
I would like less ad hominem attacks, but
I'm not giving you an ad hominem attack. I'm making an observation that you're acting like a teenager.
All right, well, get to your point.
Okay. Well, I'd like to have an adult conversation with you.
I would like to too.
I made a brief rebuttal statement. Now, when you are making an argumentation that you are not God, is your argument inherently depending on the truthfulness of the law of non-contradiction?
No, I just explained my answer to you.
Okay, so your argument is not using one of the prime laws of logic?
No, my argument is relying on that me and you both agree that contradictions are invalid. This is your second question, by the way. So I'm going to answer.
No, I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you what you believed.
Okay, re-ask the question.
I said, is your argument dependent upon the assumption that the law of non-contradiction is universal?
No.
Okay, so basically your argument does not employ the fundamental laws of logic?
No. Okay, and that's the second answer. That's the second question.
No.
That was the second question.
Wait, so you just admitted your argument was...
He just said...
I explained it, but the problem is...
He just said that his reasoning does not employ or depend on the laws of logic. Did everybody hear that?
No, what I meant...
you did say that, dude.
Yeah, well, let me clarify then, just to make sure everyone understands. And if I misspoke, I apologize. Hey, Darwin, can I speak? Thanks. So I'm going to go back, because what he's doing is just asking the same question over and over again. And I answered it pretty clearly. What my argument depends on, in order to demonstrate this argument, is that all it depends on is us agreeing, the people having the argument in the room, that contradictions are invalid. Now, unless Darwin, in his worldview, doesn't believe contradictions are invalid, my argument is demonstrated. So what he wants to do is he wants to basically keep asking questions that aren't relevant to it, right? And he's asked 3 or 4 questions, but he keeps claiming he hasn't asked any. But that's what it was relevant on. Of course, I argue with logic, right? All I'm claiming is, but I'm not making the assertion that the laws of logic are universal, because I don't have a way to demonstrate that.
Okay, good. I'd like to respond now. Okay, the mistake that you keep on making, and this is about the 4th time that you said it, that there is an agreed upon basis that in both of our worldviews, because you're speaking from your worldview, I'm speaking from my worldview, you fallaciously claimed that there was an agreement that the laws of logic exist in both respective worldviews. I never agreed to that. So you need to stop repeating that. I do not agree that from within your worldview, it can be demonstrated that the laws of logic are universal. Now, I will ask you again, is the argument and the reasoning that you are employing, okay, I have 2 questions. Is the reasoning and the argument that you're employing dependent upon the laws of logic? Yes or no? That's my first question.
Okay, first, you said something that I didn't assert. I asserted that we both agree that contradictions are invalid. That we agree on.
No.
That's where you do agree. You do not agree with that.
I do not agree that from your worldview.
That's not what I said.
Are valid.
I didn't say from my worldview.
I just don't agree with your worldview. So please stop saying that.
That's fine. You don't have to agree with my worldview, but you do agree in your worldview.
Please stop putting words in my mouth.
Okay. Do you not believe that? Do you not believe contradictions are invalid?
I am not asking you to discuss my worldview at the moment. I asked you a question. Now I will ask you the question again. And he will either answer the question or he will dodge. Now, here's my question for you. Is your reasoning right now and your argumentation dependent upon the laws of logic?
It's dependent on my statements being logical and us agreeing that contradictions are invalid.
You did not answer my question.
You can say that. That's fine. And we just disagree. I guess.
Is your argument and reasoning dependent upon the law of identity, law of non-contradiction, and the law of excluded middle?
Maybe.
The answer should be yes.
Okay. Is the answer yes, no, or I don't know?
You know, Darwin, since the fact you won't even answer a simple question like, do you believe contradictions are invalid? Why am I going to allow you to keep
dodging?
No, because you've asked me 4 questions, Darwin. You've asked me question after question, and you're interrupting me now. You're over-talking me once again.
Because
this is what you do. Yeah, but dodging is not an excuse to over-talk me. I believe we have rules in this room, and the rules in this room is for the other. You're still doing it.
Good.
You get so angry when people over-talk you. Thank you. I appreciate that again. So once again, what Darwin is doing is he's trying to actually escape any kind of holding to any kind of position, right? Because this is his tactical argument, is to try to keep focusing on what I believe, right? So I asked him a question. First, I asked him to demonstrate objective morality exists. Then he's trying to do this weird thing where he doesn't really claim objective morality by definition, which is very strange. It's the only Christian I've ever met that doesn't believe in objective morality. He avoided that. Right? He avoided saying that he believes contradictions are invalid in his worldview, which is also very strange. Why not just say yes? We may have different reasons for why we came to this, like why we believe contradictions are invalid, but there's no harm in actually agreeing to that. The problem is he understands my point, and my point stands. If we both agree on definitions, if we both agree in our worldviews, now we may have different reasons we come to our worldviews. But if in both our worldviews we agree that contradictions are invalid, and then I show a contradiction, that would make that invalid. Darwin, please go on.
Is your reasoning and your argumentation dependent on the truthfulness that the laws of logic, the law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle are universal and invariant?
What it's dependent on is that when I make an argument and I'm having an argument with somebody, is that we agree on certain terms. That's what it's dependent on.
Question.
Yes, it is.
No, I don't think he either because there's like you guys are just going in the hamster wheel here.
Yeah.
Either he can't answer the question, or maybe he's not understanding it the way you're posing it or something. But
if he wants to reframe it, I'm happy to hear how he's reframing it. But I think what is he's leading. He's trying. What he does. This is like presuppositional at its best. Like they have a script that they use, and this is the script, and he's trying to get me to a certain point, and I'm not going to answer the questions he wants me to answer. I'm going to answer them in a truthful and honest way, and that's what my argument is dependent on. What you're doing is you're strawmanning me. You're creating my argument for me and saying this is how you're arguing, when what my argument is that as long as we agree that contradictions are invalid in both of our worldviews, then I can demonstrate that they are invalid. Go ahead.
That's the fifth time that you said that. I do not agree with anything in your worldview, okay?
Okay.
Now,
you don't believe in contradictions being invalid.
I do not believe that you can demonstrate from within your worldview that contradictions are always invalid. Now, my question to you is this. It's a very simple question. Is the reasoning and argument that you are employing, does it depend on the laws of logic being universal and invariant, meaning that the laws of logic are true at all times and all places. Is your argument and reasoning dependent upon that?
No, because they can just be relevant here and not be relevant in some other universe or parallel dimension. And if they're relevant here, it would make sense fine.
Did everybody hear what he just said?
Mm-hmm.
I heard it.
Okay, you heard what he just said. So basically, do you understand that the laws of logic within the realm of philosophy is considered universally necessary for rationality and intelligibility?
Sure. Yeah.
Now,
Can you demonstrate they exist?
Do you reject the idea?
You've asked me a lot of questions. I'm asking you a question.
Can I demonstrate?
I just answer your question.
Yeah.
I just answer your question.
Yes, I can. Yeah,
Go ahead. Demonstrate that the laws of logic are universal.
Because the Christian God says they exist.
No, that's an assertion. That's not a demonstration.
No, he says they exist.
You're asserting that.
No, I'm repeating what he has said.
He talks to you?
In the Bible, God.
Oh, the book says that.
That's right.
That's not God. That's the book. The Bible.
Okay. Now here's the problem. I know you don't reject that. You reject the Christian God as the final authority to determine the way things actually are. But since you reject that, what is your final authority that you would use as a foundation to determine how things actually are, as opposed to merely believing?
What does that have to do with your assertion you just made?
What is your final authority? What is your final authority to determine what is actually the case in reality, as opposed to you merely having a strong belief that it is the case?
What does that have to do with the assertion you just made?
Okay.
Well, listen. Here's another way of putting it. Like, or maybe I may be wrong about this, but like,
okay, what we're getting here is complete dodge.
No, you're the one dodging. You're the one not answering questions. You didn't. You BS'd around objective morality. You BS'd around the idea that I'm still talking, sir. I'm still talking.
I answered your question.
Hey, no. I'm still talking.
You're lying. I answered your question.
Darwin, I'm responding.
You guys both cut me off.
Yeah, no. But the thing is Darwin makes assertions. He doesn't back them up. He claims he doesn't say objective morality exists, which is very strange for a Christian. He doesn't agree that contradictions are invalid. Once again, strange. I don't understand.
I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, what he's saying is like with. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I did cut you off spoken earlier, so please go on. I apologize.
So, like, I want to do like a thought experiment, like a hypothetical, right?
Please.
Let's say, like, I no longer dependent on God for like how I obtain what I call ultimate truth, or what I believe to know is you know what I mean? What I know, or what I say I know. I'm not going to no longer depend on God. If I'm going to remove him from the equation, what do I depend on? Do I depend on just my own human reasoning, or do I depend on something outside of myself that may be better?
Can I ask you this? When you say no, are you saying like absolute knowledge? Like in the sense that you can absolutely know certain with 100% certainty?
What I believe I know, I will say that.
Okay,
because is it possible to truly know anything if we can't verify it?
Well, there are things we can verify.
What?
Right?
I think the only thing we can verify is that there is...
spoken right now. Well, I mean, yeah, something we can verify. I could verify that I'm a male.
Can you really? Can you verify that you're not a brain in a vat?
Where did that come from? What does that have to do with anything?
Okay.
Because like if we can't verify that we're not like in some kind of matrix situation, then how can we like if we can't verify that much? How do we know that what the reality we're perceiving now is real?
Okay.
Well, what I would say to that, spoken to respond, is that like if we're going to go that far, right? If we're going to use that kind of example where how do I know I'm not a brain in the vat? You'll be in the same boat, right? Because then I can say, how do you know you're not in the brain in the vat? And then it's not just the vat that's telling you that there's a God and all this kind of stuff like that, or God's lying.
All right,
like those kind of arguments get kind of what it is spoken is they just kind of get us nowhere, right? And that's what I find frustrating. It's not like I love the theological discussion where we actually discuss scripture and we get into those kind of topics where we can actually discuss these things. And that's why originally I asked Darwin to demonstrate objective morality, because that would be an interesting argument, right?
Well, the reason.
Go ahead.
It's my turn, spoken.
Yeah.
Just real quick. One more last thing.
Go ahead.
Then I'm going to be done with it. The reason why I say it because like with if I have God to depend on, I don't have to. I don't have to believe that I'm a brain in a vat because God gives me the verification that I needed. If I was to remove that, then what could I use to therefore say that I'm not a brain in a vat? I don't know other than my own human reasoning.
Yeah, but that's what I have to say about that. Yeah, but the vat could be telling you that God is clarifying and telling you that you're not a brain in the vat, but you really are a brain in the vat. right? There's
right,
no way to actually verify that without just kind of assuming it. Like
okay,
this.
spoken. The debate is actually over because Schuyler conceded that his reasoning and his argumentation does not depend upon the laws of logic at all. He made that entirely clear.
That's not true.
Therefore, okay, I'll ask you again in the room again, and then
asking me again isn't going to change my question.
You're interrupting me. You're interrupting me.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to ask you a brief question, and then when you briefly answer it, I would like to continue with my rebuttal. Does your reasoning and argumentation depend on the laws of logic being absolute and universal?
No, what they depend on is us having agreements on logic, such as contradictions being invalid. That's what it depends on.
Okay, so what Schuyler has just meant, he said, when I asked him the question, does your reasoning and your argumentation depend upon the fundamental laws of logic, the law of identity, law of non-contradiction, and the law of excluded middle? His answer was no. Did anybody else hear him say that as well for confirmation?
Did anybody hear the second part?
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Please don't interrupt.
Well, you asked the question to everybody. I'm just answering the question.
Spoken. Did you hear him say his reasoning does not depend on the fundamental laws of logic? Spoken.
I did hear that, which is kind of why I want to say to Schuyler, you're kind of digging yourself.
Okay, well let
here.
me finish now. I just wanted confirmation that I heard it correctly. Yeah. So Spoken has confirmed this. Now, since he says that his reasoning does not depend on the law of identity and the law of non-contradiction, then he cannot employ referring to an identity's properties, nor can he appeal to contradictions being invalid in his reasoning. Therefore, since all human communication in terms of speaking, reasoning, and arguing employs the laws of logic, then he can't actually argue and reason. Now, one other final thing. He said that his reasoning and argumentation depends upon agreement. So what Schuyler has conceded to is that reasoning and logic are always valid is if both parties agree upon it. So if both parties agree that contradictions are not invalid, then you can reason by virtue that contradictions. But if all contradictions are valid, what that means is it's called the principle of explosion, okay? Which means that all propositions hold. If all contradictions are not invalid, right? If all contradictions are valid, that means that all statements all hold. So basically, because Schuyler has not actually understood that the fundamental laws of logic, law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle undergird all human reasoning, and because he has conceded before us here today, and I'm glad that this room is recorded that he's done so, he has conceded that they are conventional because they are merely agreed upon in the same manner that monopoly rules are, or driving on the right or the left-hand side, or calling a tree or a dog or a dog. So he has admitted that logic and reason is only valid if human beings agree on it. So therefore, he can't really reason about anything because he rejects the fundamental laws of logic. And you heard him here. You heard him say it here.
Well, that was the biggest straw man I've ever heard here on YouTube. So to respond to that, that's not what I meant. You just completely strawmanned me. I was saying in this specific argument, and I wasn't talking about all of logic with that. I was talking about a specific thing, us agreeing that contradictions are invalid, which you haven't even agreed to. You said you didn't agree that contradictions are invalid. You said you didn't share anything with my worldview, and in my worldview, I believe contradictions are invalid. So you don't believe that, I guess. That's your opinion. You have done nothing but make assertions to back up your argument. I asked you how you know, how you have this knowledge, and your answer was God said so, and then appealed to a 2,000-year-old book. Which it's just laughable. And what's kind of hilarious is like this kind of rant you kind of went on, man, and to kind of like, oh, I got him this time, I got Schuyler fiction. When time after time, you haven't made a coherent argument. You don't even argue your worldview, which is, I'm willing at least to argue my worldview. We haven't had one substantive debate because you refuse to actually make an argument for what you believe, right? And if you think that people who watch you think that you're a good debater when you actually don't make arguments, you are dead wrong and embarrassing yourself over and over again. I think MK wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like a chance to respond.
Yeah, okay, you know what? That's fine. Feel free to respond, but hold on, please. I would like to change topics, though. But yeah, go ahead and respond, please, if you would like.
Well, this is the level of cognitive dissonance. Schuyler does not even realize that he says that he can be rational and come to actually know that certain things are the case merely because two parties agree upon it.
It's not true.
If two
Straw
parties,
man.
okay,
You're straw manning. You're being dishonest. Again, that's not what I said. You're being dishonest.
Schuyler made it emphatically clear in here in the room, and Spoken confirmed it, that he said valid reasoning and argument. You keep on interrupting me.
Well, you're being dishonest, and it's not.
Stop interrupting me, please.
Oh, okay.
I didn't interrupt you.
MK, he is being pretty dishonest.
Okay, how about this? How about this, Dawkins?
MK,
Yeah,
every time.
Dawkins. Yeah, Dawkins. I was trying to speak up, and you and I have discussed this before. That when I'm trying to moderate, that you would concede the floor to me. So look, can you please keep what you're about to say to about 20 seconds, please?
Schuyler, you heard it here on the audio. You heard it here on the broadcast. Spoken confirmed it. He said that his reasoning, his rational arguments, do not depend on the law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. You heard it here, folks.
I didn't say that, actually.
Okay, well then, how about this? Let's just. I know that Gigi's in here and Spoken, of course, and Arcane. Would you guys like to say anything about anything?
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Spoken, I know, wanted to ask something earlier, I thought. And Spoken, if you want anything you want to ask me, man, I thought you were really interesting to talk to. Like, I don't feel like you have different motives in having the conversation. Like, I feel like you're pretty honest with how you talk. So.
I think Dawkins is a much better debater than you, Schuyler. So I don't know why you're talking about his debate skills.
Well, you're a nihilist, dude. I don't really have much respect.
Oh, how is that relevant? Answer that. How is that relevant?
Because you don't pretty much believe in anything.
How is that?
It's relevant because why would I respect somebody that has no beliefs?
Nihilists don't believe in anything?
You don't believe anybody can know it.
Even if that was true, how is that relevant to you being a court
debater? Why would I respect somebody who that claims they can't know anything at all?
Whether you respect me or not.
How would you even know that I'm a good debater or a bad debater if you can't?
Whether you should respect me or not, how is that relevant to you fucking Dawkins kicking your ass?
Yeah, so how it's relevant is you're telling me your opinion on how I did in this debate with Dawkins, right? And what I'm doing is responding to your opinion by saying your opinion is irrelevant to me because you can't know anything. And if you can't know anything, how would you know that I didn't do well in this debate? So that's why it's irrelevant to the conversation. And I've just heard you various times before. You're not someone to really be taken seriously. That's it.
Okay, so you denied saying something. So I'll ask you the question.
No, hold up. I don't want to get back into that.
I think we're changing topics. Yeah.
I don't want to get back into that, please.
Well, he denied saying something. Can I just confirm
that's fine.
whether he said it or not?
No. I mean,
how about this, Dawkins? Can you please, make a video about it or something? I don't want to.
Well, I would just like one last question because he denied saying it and it was recorded.
No, I am not.
Okay, that's fine because we have the timestamp of where he said it.
Hey, I'll probably put it up on my channel, so I'll put the whole video up. It's no big deal.
Yeah, we can put the timestamp where he said no, he does not depend on the laws of law.
Okay, I already told you we're switching topics.
Thank you. I tried to argue morality with him, but he didn't want to talk about morality. He didn't want to talk about it. I tried.
And by the way, Gigi, I wrote you a message in the side here that, well, whatever, you can read it.
Oh, okay, I see.
And the only reason I said that is because I came back and I didn't hear the whole thing between you and Schuyler, but I just walked back in and it something just struck my ears as though maybe something was going in a way that I'm not
Well,
really.
I didn't call them any names or anything. I wasn't meaning to. I wasn't saying it to be disrespectful. I'm just saying I think he was getting his ass kicked.
Well, at the same time, I don't even know what you said, so I'm not even accusing you of anything. I'm just saying. Okay, hold on. I'm in the middle of a sentence, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want you to feel like I accused you per se. Which I'm not. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that upon me coming back into the room and sitting down, I felt like something may have been happening, which is why I just, wanted to shoot you that info.
And I don't know what kind of nihilist Skylar thinks I am.
Well, I just heard you make claims about knowledge before you didn't know anything. But anyway, so if someone
You think that I'm an epistemological nihilist?
Okay,
I'm
Godless.
really just not that interested in you, Godless, to be honest with you.
Godless, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think if somebody in this hangout maintains that they can be rational?
All right, we're not going there. I am not entertaining anything that has to do with you and Skylar debating. I'm just not doing that.
Okay, no, go away.
Hey, yo, Mike, we can kind of hear your background if you don't mind muting when you're not talking. Just no offense. Totally
Skylar, are you a solipsist?
I got 4 dogs here. I don't know why they're playing this. I don't know. They're playing now. Chase each other around and stuff, so sorry about that.
Skylar, are you a solipsist?
No.
But you don't know that you're not a brain in a vat?
There's no evidence for me to believe that I was a brain in a vat. It's a silly concept.
That's not what solipsism is.
Well, you asked me a question about being a brain in a vat.
I'm asking you, do you think you can know anything?
I'm just responding to what you saying.
Can you know that you're not a brain in a vat?
In what way? How do you define no?
Justified knowledge is justified true belief.
A justified true belief. What would make me justified in knowing? How could I be justified in knowing that I was not a brain in a vat?
If there was an omniscient.
Well, you would have to know that it's impossible.
I was talking to God.
Not you
Dawkins. Thanks, Godless. Go ahead, Godless.
Yeah, you would have to know that it's impossible that you're a brain in a vat, right?
So, in order for me to know that I'm not a brain in the vat, I would have to know that I'm not a brain in the vat.
Right, I'm asking you, can you know that?
have to be able to justify that you're not a brain in a vat.
Why would I have to be able to justify that I'm not a brain in the vat?
In order
under what standard?
In order to know it, because in order to know something, you have to know that the contrary is impossible.
Well, yeah, I mean, the question seems nonsensical because you're saying in order to know that you're not a brain in the vat, you would have to know that you're not a brain in the vat. Because I would have to have the ability to know that. That's such a nonsensical question. What's the point of it?
I'm asking you, do you know it?
Can you be absolutely certain that you are not a brain in a vat?
Can I be absolutely certain? It's an interesting question. Can I be absolutely certain that I'm not a brain in a vat? I think it's. Well, I guess let me answer it this way. In the same way that I can't be absolutely certain that I'm not a flying hippopotamus god who shits ice cream on other planets. That would be in the same way. I couldn't know.
So what? You can't know that, right?
What's your point? That's what I'm trying to ask you. What's the point of this thought game?
Well, I wanted you to answer, and then I was going to proceed.
Well, I just did.
So is the answer yes or no?
Are you guys?
I believe the answer is that he doesn't know. He has no way of. There's no way anyone can know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's. I'm trying to point out the absurdity of the question.
Well, because you're not a solipsist, right?
Nice.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what your point is. So if you get to your point and just
my point is you're contradicting yourself.
And how am I doing that?
Well, if you're not a solipsist, then what's your answer to hard solipsism? Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Is that what we're doing? We're just telling people to shut the fuck up? Is that what we're doing?
No, yeah, she got ejected for that.
Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, is there any Christian that wants to demonstrate objective morality? I would love to hear their argument for it. That's what I originally came in here to get Darwin to do, but he wasn't going to do it. I guess he doesn't believe in objective morality.
Well, actually, I don't know why you're pretending, that I didn't respectfully and in an adult manner answer your question. You
Well, you
asked me if I advocate. Okay, please don't interrupt me. You asked me if I advocated the concept of objective morality. I said no, I don't. What I said that I do believe, and that it is the case, is that the Christian God exists and he has an immutable character, whereupon we are obligated to comport ourselves with his character because he says so and he cannot lie.
How many assertions are you going to lay on top of each other before you actually make an argument?
Okay, if you reject that the Christian God is the final authority, then could you tell me what is the final authority that you appeal to, and what is the justification for it?
My worldview has nothing to do with your assertions, and you not backing them up.
The question is this.
I know what the question is. I heard the question, Darwin.
I'd like to respond without being interrupted.
Well, no, if you're just going to repeat the question, I'm not going to allow you to respond
without being interrupted.
We'll do. I guess what I'll do is I'll just hide the other person who's not talking, and then
that's good.
We'll keep it to short. We'll keep it to short talking turns.
Okay. All right. So Schuyler rejects that the Christian God speaks authoritatively and in a self-authenticating way. He rejects the Christian God is the final authority to declare what actually is the case in reality. He rejects this because he said it has not been justified. So my question is to Schuyler, what is his final authority for determining what is actually the case as opposed to what he merely believes, and how does he justify what his final authority is?
Schuyler, you're muted.
Sorry. Answered this question earlier, and you're still not backing up your assertions. Whenever you're ready, go for it, buddy. I'm waiting.
Well, real quick. I do kind of like his question because to me, I find it very interesting. Because like before I was a Christian, I said I was an atheist, even though I was more agnostic. But when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, pretty much what Darwin is saying. Like, if we were to remove God from the situation, how could I know what is the truth of reality? You know what I mean? How can I know other than what I perceive and reason on my own accord?
Well, we don't just need. Well, you can use multiple things to test things. You don't just need your reasoning. You can use other people's reasoning. You can use your reasoning. You could use computers that don't have subjective minds in the sense we do as human beings. There's lots of ways you can test things. Now, when you say no, that's the tricky part, right? Because really what Darwin is kind of arguing is absolute knowledge, right? But there are things that you can know by definition. And that's what really this is how the whole conversation started off, is me pointing out as an example that as long as we have a definition and we agree to a definition on this certain thing, we can have a conversation about it and agree or disagree about it.
Okay, Schuyler, I asked you a question. What is your final authority that you appeal to determine what is actually the case in reality as opposed to you strongly believing it?
Yeah, I answered that question earlier, and you have not backed up your assertion.
No, I asked you the question, what is your final authority to determine what is actually the case in reality as opposed to you strongly believing it?
Sure, it would depend on the specific instance and what we're talking about.
I'm talking, what is your ultimate final authority to determine anything at all in reality is the case as opposed to you strongly believing it?
It would, like I said, it depends on the situation because different things would have different points in which would be my final authority.
Do you understand what a final authority would be?
I do, and you still have not backed up your assertion.
Okay.
Well, like for instance,
hold on, I'm not done. Schuyler, in my worldview, my final authority is the omniscient mind of God, and he speaks and he cannot lie. That is my final authority to determine what is actually the case as opposed to me strongly believing it. Now, I'm going to ask you the question. What is your final authority to determine anything in reality is actually the case as opposed to you merely strongly believing it?
So I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to comment on what you believe, because you basically just said your final authority is an assertion and a claim that you can't actually demonstrate, and you don't bother to demonstrate. So I could fill in anything here. If I just want to say that deist God's my final authority, and then I'm not going to back up any of my information like you do, and I'm not going to back up any of my arguments, I'll just do exactly what you do. So the deist God is my final authority.
Do you?
Okay, by the way, I just wanted to step in to moderate. Let's give it 5 more minutes of this debate thing, and then just let's not do that, please. Let's not,
No, absolutely. I was happy to talk to Spoken. I thought it was going to be an interesting dialogue. Darwin's just going to keep jumping in. Go ahead, Darwin.
So Schuyler says that he rejects my final authority because he doesn't see any justification for it. Schuyler, what is the justification for what your final authority is, and could you tell me what your final authority is to determine that anything in reality is the case?
So I didn't actually say that. I didn't say because there was no justification for it. What I said was you made an assertion. You should back up your assertion to make an argument. So that's kind of a new question to this.
That's called a justification.
No, I'm just asking you. It can be a justification. Sure, you can be justifying your thing. But what I asked you was to actually demonstrate your assertion and your claim, which you still have not done. So.
Okay.
45 minutes in.
What is your final authority that would enable you to determine anything and everything that is actually the case, as opposed to you merely believing it?
Wait a minute. Everything that is actually the case?
Schuyler, what is your final authority?
Wait a minute. You're asking me. Hold on. No, I'm listening. I heard your question. I'll answer it.
Okay, good. Answer it.
Okay. Yeah. You're asking me a question that's nonsensical. You're saying what would be my final authority in order to basically demonstrate everything that actually exists in reality,
or anything,
Well, I gave you examples of anything earlier, so I'm not going to re-answer this question.
What is your final authority?
It depends on the specific situation.
What would that be?
If you give me a specific example,
for example, like if you were to at the end of the day, you.
I'd like to finish. Spoken. Okay.
Of course, Darwin would like to finish.
Okay, Schuyler. What is your final authority that determines what anything is actually the case in reality, as opposed to you strongly believing it?
Like I said, it depends on the situation. You're not either listening to me or it's too dense for you to kind of get through.
Do you have an answer to my question?
I answered your question multiple times.
What is your final authority to determine that anything...
If you ask the question again, it's not going to get a different answer.
Okay,
you're not backing up any of your, first of all, you didn't back up any of your assertions. Not one.
Okay,
not one besides you saying God said so. And then you want to ask me 100 questions that have nothing to do with you backing up your assertions.
Okay.
Everyone sees this. It's pathetic.
I understand that you don't accept my final authority. I'm asking you, what is your final authority?
That's not what I said. I didn't say that I don't accept your final authority. I asked you to demonstrate your final authority.
I said because when he speaks, anything he says is self-authenticating because he can't lie.
You backed up your claim with another claim. That's great. That's wonderful.
Do you accept that justification?
I don't accept that specific justification.
Okay, good.
Because you backed up a claim with another claim.
Okay, good. Now, could you tell me what is your final authority to determine that anything in particular is actually the case in reality?
Anything? It would. Well, I told you specific ones earlier. I don't know if you remember what happened. So.
What is your final authority?
Okay, you can ask the question again.
Well, you haven't answered it.
Well, that's fine. We can move on.
Okay, now Spoken. Do you understand the problem here? When I ask Schuyler what is his final authority, I've asked him several times, and he is either unwilling or he's incapable of telling us what his final authority is to determine any. Excuse me, you're interrupting me. I'm speaking to Spoken.
Well, I'm just telling you, you're dishonest.
Okay, I'm speaking to Spoken. Would you not interrupt me, please?
Would you be not dishonest?
Would you please not interrupt me? I'm speaking.
Yeah, I don't really want to get involved with this because this is like a hamster wheel.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Let me ask
a child. Like let me tell the kid, hey, I'm right, right?
All right. So Spoken, are you?
Spoken's not even trying to play your game, dude.
Spoken, do you share the same view that I do, that the Bible is the infallible, inspired Word of God? Spoken.
I do.
Okay, good. So if God says something, and He cannot lie, that when God gives revelation, it is self-authenticating. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Okay, good. In the Bible, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Therefore, everything that exists that is independent and external to God would be contingent upon God. Isn't that correct spoken?
Yep. Yes, that is also correct.
Okay, good. So since you and I share the same worldview, our final authority that would determine what is actually the case in reality would be God himself, right?
That is also correct, yeah.
Okay, good. Now, if that worldview is rejected, if the God of the Bible is rejected, that his revelation is self-authenticating, then Schuyler must have, or for that matter, any other skeptic, must have some final authority that he can appeal to in order to make any rational argument. Because in order to make a rational argument, you would have to say something is the case or something is not the case. And when you make the statement that something is or is not the case, you would have to offer some justification for it. You would have to appeal to a source that would be a final authority. Now, Schuyler would have us believe, and skeptics would have us believe,
Okay,
they are capable of making, I'll just say skeptics in general, skeptics would have us believe that they are capable of making rational discourse and to determine what is or is not the case.
10 seconds, please.
But they don't have a final authority that can confirm or justify that anything is the case.
Okay, I'm just going to be honest. I can't take more of this.
I understand.
This, like Spoken said, it's just like a hamster wheel.
Yeah, well, you should agree with it because it's central to Genesis 1:1, MK.
I am not even going to get sucked into this. I am done. I actually am closing the hangout. I'm going to close the hangout, and may God bless us all.
I'm delighted that I'm going to be able to.
Hey, God bless y'all. Take care.
Okay, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm going to delight in seeing the timestamp where Schuyler contradicted himself.
Yeah. If you want, Darwin, I'll put the video up. MK won't take the video down after it's up for like a minute, and then tell me that he's going to keep it up, like you did. Remember that? Remember when you told me you would keep the video up for my...
Schuyler Fiction. Schuyler Fiction.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Are you an atheist?
Yep.
Okay. And are you the kind of atheist that defines it as a lack of belief or that there is no God?
Other definitions work for me, but me personally, I'm more of a, hold the belief that there is no God, so I don't just lack belief in God.
Okay. Well, that's the standard and historical definition. Okay. So when you talk about evidence, when you ask for evidence, would you agree or not agree that evidence is specific to a worldview or a paradigm?
No.
How can you have evidence then without a worldview or a paradigm?
Well, I mean, like what are you asking? Like, do I need to adopt a specific worldview?
Well, would something be the same evidence in a purely philosophical naturalistic worldview versus, let's say, Hinduism, where all is an illusion?
I think so.
Well, in naturalism, physicality actually exists.
Right.
In Hinduism, all is Brahman. It's all an illusion.
Right.
Okay. So you couldn't have something be the same kind and type of evidence in both worldviews.
Well, I mean, empirical evidence is sensory experience, and it seems to me that, would you not have experience in this Hindu illusionist worldview?
Yeah, but all of those experiences are an illusion.
Yeah. Okay.
So for example, a bullet that has ballistic grooves on it in naturalism, and I'm assuming, of course, the naturalism holds to that there are laws of physics, chemistry, etc. That would be actual, but in Hinduism, it wouldn't be actual. Everything is an illusion. Right. So they wouldn't be the same.
So in this case, evidence is worldview specific, right?
Well, I mean, but you can have like sensory experience in either worldview, right? It's just like in one.
Well, when you say sensory experience, are we talking about actual physicality through a cause and effect relationship acting upon, let's say, aspects of a central nervous system?
Well, in the other one, there wouldn't be such a thing, right?
There wouldn't be sensory experience.
I mean, there would be like some sort of mind having this experience of this illusory world, right?
No, there wouldn't be an experience. It would be an illusion. Because in the first world that we're referring to, you have actual physicality. You actually have cause and effect relationships.
I mean, but you know, if you're going to have an illusion, that presupposes that there's like some mind experiencing this illusion, right?
No, but there's not sensory experience. Okay. The point I'm trying to drive home to you, and this is an uncontroversial point, is that evidence as an interpretation of facts would have to be worldview specific. This is an uncontroversial point. Right?
Oh, okay, fine. Like, you know,
right.
there's some worldviews where that concept doesn't apply.
That's correct. You could have a couple of worldviews that have a lot of parallels where you could have the same kind of evidence in some worlds, but it would still nonetheless be worldview specific. So, for example, if you had a worldview that all events are the product of chance and not a cause and effect relationship or prescriptive laws, then could you have evidence for something?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
The answer,
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. That's an honest answer. Well, the answer is no. In a worldview or a paradigm where all events where there are no causal relationships or connections, then there wouldn't be evidence for anything. You would just have a multiplicity of chance events. So when you ask for evidence of Christianity or God's existence, that's from within your worldview, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess,
Okay. So in your worldview, in order to have evidence, there would have to be certain things that would have to be true, right?
Yeah, I guess. There would have to be, like, thinking beings that have sensory experience, or at least some sort of mental experience.
Right. So one of the things that would have to be true is that the actual physical world is actual rather than illusory, right? That would have to be true, wouldn't it?
Yeah, or, this
Okay,
reality.
and would there have to be prescriptive laws?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Such as the laws of chemistry, right?
All right.
Now, in your worldview, when you ask for evidence, is it the case that there are prescriptive laws of nature in order for you to have evidence?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Wait, did you hear me? Hello?
You got it. Somebody's interrupted it. How do you have a worldview without first having experience?
I mean, I get your point. Like people have experience and then they form a worldview based on those experiences, right?
And that's the experiences are the evidence. They're one and the same. So,
I mean, thing is,
he's trying to paint the worldview before the evidence, but it just can't work that way ever. It's impossible.
Like another thing I was thinking about, this whole world that I experience, could all be like the Matrix, right?
Right, but we would have, there's no guarantee that we'd have a way to tell. Like if that's true, then to the best of our knowledge, the way the world really is not a matrix, but the setup that the programming has inside, and it's unreasonable to assume it's a matrix when you're inside one, because the only thing you're getting is the evidence that the matrix programmed to deliver to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not assuming it, but, I think I could still do science in such a world. I could still,
even if you're in a matrix, in order to operate at an optimal level in that matrix, the best way to operate would be to go by the evidence.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
That way you could make predictions about how the matrix is going to how it's going to act.
So you're a scientist, aren't you?
Yeah, and there's no even if we assume there's a matrix, there's nothing to suggest that the creator of the matrix is a god.
Right.
Which is kind of that's kind of what with the Hindu thing, when they say it's illusory, there's really, what's the difference between that and a matrix? It's a god creating a matrix, basically.
From what I've read on like Hindu cosmology, they see like this world we experience as being like the dream of some god. It's like this matrix generated within his mind.
I mean, even if you're in something like that, when does it become reasonable to believe that?
Right. Well, I guess we have some evidence for it, but I mean, I'm not aware of such.
Imagine if you're a god and you create a world that doesn't provide the evidence to show that you've put those people in a matrix. Would you then expect those people to believe that?
No, absolutely not. I was already thinking of my answer before you finished saying your question, but no, I would not.
So it's almost like if there was a God in that situation, he would expect you to not believe in him. He probably would want you to not believe in him.
I mean, if he thinks like I do, then yeah, he wouldn't.
I mean, what we're describing is a world where he has set it up in a way to encourage you to think that way.
I mean, I guess I would have to assume that he thinks like I do, but I don't see a guarantee that he would.
Well, no, I'm just saying if he set it up that way, that would be evidence that he intended you to think a certain way. If he purposefully set it up that way.
I don't think so. He could be like a troll.
Yeah, but a troll wants you to think that way. That's what I'm saying. A troll wants you to be in the illusion so that he can piss you off.
I mean, like, it could be like, this troll god, like if you don't end up believing in his existence, he would send you to hell,
That's what I'm saying is that he I'm not talking about the morality of his intention, like the how good it would be for us, or whether or not he's like he could intend you, like you just said, he could be trolling you and intend you to think that way so that you go to hell, but my point still stands that he intended you to think that way. He designed it for you to think that way.
Okay, fine.
So any way you look at it, though, like we would have no way of proving that type of setup. Obviously, because he designed it in a way you couldn't. So it's unreasonable to jump to the conclusion that we would be in that kind of setup, even if you're in one. And also, a setup like that doesn't match any religion I've ever heard of anyway. Well, I guess I do know one guy I met one guy who's a maltheist. I guess it would match his. But besides him, I've never met another maltheist.
Yeah, I get it. If they exist, they're like a really small minority.
So the majority of the views of God that are out there would not even match that possibility whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's definitely inconsistent with like Christianity, Islam, like all the big religions, really. Even deism too. Ironically.
Yeah, that's deist. I mean, well, I guess, every God belief falls into deism, doesn't it? And, I don't know. Does a deist require that it's only one God?
I think the older deists did, but nowadays you have what's called polytheism.
Yeah.
Like you had like all these different gods who were like the first causes of the universe.
Like could a maltheist consider himself a deist? Could there be a deist that has a trollish god?
Okay, let's see.
I don't know, that definition is kind of vague, I think.
I mean, deism's more about like a god who kind of like created the universe, set up the initial conditions, and then let go. Like, isn't a maltheist and a god who's like actively intervening in the universe, like causing evil and whatnot?
See, but saying that he created it and then let go doesn't really talk about his intention, like how he feels about us. Does he like us? Does he want to cause us harm? Does he because he could not care, or maybe he could lack the power to do anything after that point, or I don't know. There's just so many variables there. In a way, these words like theist and deist and Christian, they're almost kind of worthless until the person defines specifically what they mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've read the Bible, so it kind of explains a little bit of like God's nature and like God's intentions and his plans for humanity, the future, and so I mean they've sort of defined it somewhat for me, like their concept. But like, yeah, if I'm talking to a religious person, I would ask him to define or explain his ideas to me. So I mean, I know what he's talking about, right?
I bet you if you asked this gentleman here the question that I started with, how do you form a worldview without experience? I wonder how he would. I would bet he would respond with questions and not even answer it. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I've seen him do that most of the time.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so in your worldview, you ask for evidence, and
right.
there is prerequisites for evidence, and one of them would be that you don't live in a chance universe, right?
Incorrect.
What?
Incorrect.
Okay, why? How could you have evidence in an entirely chance universe?
What your experiences are evident. If you're experiencing a chance universe, you're getting a constant stream of information through your senses that would constitute evidence.
No, you're not understanding this. In an entirely chance universe, each and every singular event does not have any relationship to any other event.
Okay.
So you can't speak of sense perception.
I just did.
I know you did, but I just explained to you why it's incorrect.
No, you just asserted it's incorrect.
I mean,
No,
like,
I just explained to you why it's incorrect. I'll be glad to go over it again for you.
no, I understand what you're saying. Like you're saying something along the lines, like in such a universe, you wouldn't have.
Can you get closer to your mic?
Okay, like in such a universe.
Oh, hold on a second. It's not you. It's me. Hold on. Yeah, I just have my earpiece in incorrectly. Go ahead.
Like in such a universe, there wouldn't be like external stimuli causing you to have a certain experience.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, if you weren't having an experience, then you wouldn't even be able to think. Like, how could you even exist on as a conscious being without an experience?
Well, because you're not accustomed to thinking that all events could be the product of chance, you're overlaying your paradigm of your physical model of the world and then trying to see that is operative within a chance universe.
I mean, I don't really believe in the chance.
No, I'm just responding. I'm just responding to the assertion that you wouldn't have an experience if you don't have an experience.
No, experience is a term that we use when there are causal relationships. The word experience would be meaningless in an entirely chance universe.
I mean, when I say experience, I'm talking about the flow of information that's coming in through your senses. Without that, you wouldn't even be a conscious being.
Right. Well, there wouldn't be a flow of information because that contains the idea of causal relations.
Right.
What you're doing is what you're doing.
We do have that.
No, what I'm trying to explain to you, and I hope that you're being sincere, because I have explained it. I'll be glad to explain it to you again. You're superimposing your conceptual framework of causal relations in whatever way you're thinking of them onto a chance universe. But in a chance universe, well, then there wouldn't be sensory experience, because
You're repeating.
Yeah, sensory experience necessarily includes the concept that there are causal relations. I'll be right back.
Okay, so I mean, why do we have to repeat that? Like, do you remember my response to that? It's like it's almost like he's not responding to what I'm saying.
Like, if we lived in his sort of chance universe, we wouldn't know that we live in that sort of chance universe.
Yeah, we wouldn't. I mean, based on his definition, if without experience, we wouldn't be a conscious being. You like, it's like he's saying, he's telling me I don't understand because I'm mapping this world we live in onto that, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm not mapping anything. I'm just looking at what you just said. You said we wouldn't have experience. It's like he's saying if we lived in a chance universe, you could have consciousness without experience, without that flow of information.
Like what he's trying to say is that, he thinks that, the physicalist or / naturalist worldview entails such a chance universe, but it doesn't. Like no naturalist philosopher ever has argued for such a worldview. They've always argued for a cause and effect, natural, deterministic.
I mean, anything else is absurdity, because like I said, he's proposing that you would have consciousness without the experience, or that it would even be a possibility, or maybe we would come and go. You're just going into absurdity. It's self-contradictory. It doesn't even make sense. And he's saying I think what he's trying to say is like, I'm trying to make sense of it because I'm in that type of world, so I'm trying to map it onto that. And it's like, no, I'm not. That what you're describing is a lack of that. I mean,
if trying to tell us what naturalism is, but naturalism is not that kind of chance universe. We believe in this. Wait, do you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Like, we believe in this deterministic cause and effect natural world that was not created by a god or gods or anything supernatural.
What he's trying to propose is that you're starting with that belief, and that you're then analyzing your evidence or your experience with that baseline, but that's actually backwards. You start with the flow of information coming in, the experience, the sensory input. You start with that before you come to that worldview.
Yeah, I mean, like, I believe in this cause and effect world because I experienced this cause and effect world.
Right.
Like, okay. I mean, I could have presupposed that belief, but I don't have to.
No, you don't have to.
It's confirmed by my experiences anyway.
Right. So, Outbound, when you speak of sensory experience, by definition, that entails the concept of causal relations.
Why?
So you can't have sensory experience in an entirely chance universe. There would be
Why not?
Individual, I'll explain to you. Sensory experience entails actual cause and effect relationship.
Yeah, but you could have a random chance universe that by random chance somebody's having an experience that wasn't caused by anything.
You're not understanding. I'm not trying to be condescending to you or not be nice.
I think you're not understanding.
Well, I'll explain it to you again if you want.
No, I think you need to let me explain it to you.
When we say an entirely chance universe, we're not
in one ear and out the other.
Well, listen. This is a subject matter that
you're just repeating the same thing over again.
Okay, if you
what I'm saying is
that's fine.
No, I'm not trolling you. What I'm saying is the same thing to you that you're saying to me. You don't understand it, and you need someone.
I do understand it.
No, you don't.
I'll explain it to you. Why you're?
No, you need it explained to you.
Why don't you stop over talking me?
Why don't you stop over talking me and let me explain it to you?
This is why our conversations that I've had with you.
I'm doing the same thing you are. You're doing it first. I'll explain it to you.
Okay, so you're just gonna troll.
I'm not. You're trolling me.
Would you?
You're the one who sat here and repeated the same thing over and over again.
No, I'm trying to explain in an even more clear manner so you can understand your incorrect notion. But you won't.
That's what I'm trying to do, and you won't let me.
Right. You cannot have an experience in an entirely chance universe because in every event, each singular independent event, there are no causal relations. You're thinking of a semi-chance universe.
Like experience itself is a
Do you realize that you just restated the same thing that I've? Do you remember my response to that?
Okay, Outbound. Seriously, either you're trolling me, or you have some serious problems intellectually. This is a subject matter.
I just asked you a simple question.
Right, I know that. You see, dude, I'm going to explain it to you.
Do you remember my response?
Yeah, I remember it. The fact of the matter is,
what was my response?
Sensory experience.
I remember what you said.
Okay, good. All right, listen.
Do you remember what I said?
Dude, I'm not doing this any further with you. You don't know how to converse with people.
I'm asking you a simple question.
Right, dude. Listen, either change your methodology, or I'll just leave the room, and I'll just send Immortal an invite to a separate chat. This happens every time I converse with you, every time without fail. Now, I don't know whether you're doing this on purpose.
You're doing it.
Okay. Yeah, this is like talking to a 12-year-old. No, I know you are, but what am I? I mean, seriously.
It is.
Okay.
It is like talking to a 12-year-old.
Okay. All right. Now, sensory experience entails causal relations.
Like the process itself is a causal.
Right.
Causal process.
Yeah, the very definition of sensory experience is a causal relationships. Right? Okay, so Immortal, in order to have evidence, you have to have certain prerequisites, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I think they're met in my worldview.
Now, in the Christian worldview, the Christian God is omniscient,
omnipotent, and always truth revealing. And in that revelation, he has revealed the prerequisites for there to be evidence at all. Namely, that nature operates in an orderly way, our basic sense perception, our basic cognitive processes operate in a reliable way. So there can be evidence due to the way that the God of the Bible has made physicality. But if you don't start that it is the case that God exists, and yet you insist on evidence, you're going to have to give metaphysical arguments that the prerequisites for evidence actually exist.
I mean, you could have a world of cause and effect without a God.
Right, but here's the problem. That would be invoking that these prerequisites are brute facts, right? They just exist. In other words, they're not the product of a creator.
I mean, are they like brute facts? And
well, when I just say a brute facts, they just are, right? They're not contingent. They're not. See, so for example, the prerequisites for evidence from within the Christian worldview, in and of themselves, just are not. They're not are. They are put into place, and they're contingent upon the God of the Bible, right?
So,
but if you're going to say that those prerequisites for evidence from within your worldview exist, you're going to have to establish that they do exist.
Yeah, I agree. It's an issue of any worldview that.
Right. And you see, anytime we make anytime we make statements of predication, right?
Right.
And when we talk with people all the time, in fact, almost all of our statements have unstated premises and concepts. And if we stated all the linear concepts that support those statements, it would be too cumbersome in conversations.
Right.
Right. But in the great debate over whether God exists or not, when a skeptic comes along and says, no, it is not necessarily the case that the God of the Bible exists or a God exists. Give me evidence. But that presupposes that you can have evidence without it actually being the case that the God of the Bible exists.
Well, I mean, I'm open to this notion of God being having a necessary existence if
right, but how can you have evidence in your worldview as an atheist? How do you establish that that there are prescriptive laws of nature that would permit you to have evidence?
By empiricism and induction.
No, that would be circular.
No, that would not be circular.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Okay, I will explain to you. I'll explain to you why it is. Right. This is a common mistake that people make. Right. Empiricism must necessarily presuppose the uniformity of nature. Because if you don't, any activities such as observation, testing, and repeatability are meaningless. All right? So you can't appeal to empirical endeavors as actual support.
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, I get what you're saying.
All right. Well, we can talk about it. Okay. All right.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. So if in a world where there were not prescriptive laws,
right,
and all events were the product of chance,
right,
right, then observation, testing, and repeatability would be meaningless.
Right.
So in order for observation and testing and repeatability to be meaningful, you must presuppose the uniformity of nature. Now, the uniformity of nature is a conceptual framework. It can ebb and flow as to what you want to include in it or exclude at any given moment. So, for example, if you were to observe a series of consistent physical phenomenon over a long period of time,
Right.
but then you were to see a particular deviation in one consistency,
Right.
that would not falsify the uniformity of nature. It would just cause your conceptual framework to shrink or grow somewhat. Okay? So one must presuppose the uniformity of nature even to speak of the meaningfulness of observation, testing, and repeatability. All right? So you can't appeal to empirical observations to support the uniformity of nature.
Like, I mean, why not? Isn't that what we observe in the universe? You know, it behaving in an orderly, lawful, uniform way.
Well, what you're referring to are observations of consistencies. Now, it may be the case that a universe that is governed by prescriptive laws are producing those consistencies, but an entirely chance universe can produce those consistencies as well. One's only escape from that would be an attempt to appeal to probability.
I mean, that's sort of what induction is, isn't it?
No. Yeah, well, that's the problem of induction, because your conclusions are not logically necessitated.
Right. Yeah,
and there's another explanation, even though it may be inconceivable or unacceptable to somebody, it doesn't mean that there is not another explanation for a series of consistencies.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that happens in inductive reasoning all the time.
Right.
You know, you
Right.
weigh several options and determine which one's more probable.
Right. So how is it the case that the uniformity of nature actually exists in order for you to have evidence in your worldview as an atheist?
I mean, it could be like an unanswered or unanswerable question.
Well, the answer is there are no brute facts to speak of unless you're just imagining that something is the case, or that your belief coincides to the actual state of affairs. But there is no way from an atheist worldview to actually determine what the actual state of affairs is.
Sensory experience.
No, because you would have to presuppose that your basic sensory input is operating reliably.
No, you really don't. You just have to make sure that your ideas match the reality of your experience.
All right. Let me explain this to you. You have to assume, in order to appeal to sensory experience, you must presuppose the basic reliability of your sensory experience. Now, for example, I'll give you an illustration. If I go to the eye doctor and he has me read the chart,
right,
and I say the letter E, and he says, no, that's a B. And I said, no, I can clearly see that it is an E. And he says, come here. And I walk closer, and as I get closer, I see that it's a B instead of an E, right?
Right.
Now, I just realized that
He makes absolutely no point when he says that. I just realized that it was a B, not an E. Well, just let me get my headphones in here. Well, obviously, he didn't know it was a B and not an E, because when he looked at it with faulty eyes, he saw an E. But when he got closer, more evidence, more reason to believe that it's a B, because he sees a B when the conditions are right. So Mr. Dawkins is one big bag of nonsense. Nonsense. Look, we've got another. I don't know. We're probably halfway through this. Let me know if anybody wants to start the get me going on the discussion room, the chat room. We've got plenty to discuss from what we've seen up to this point.
All of my sensory experiences are reliable. But I just assumed when I got closer and it looked like a bee, that in that particular circumstance, it was reliable.
Yeah, like you used your sensory experience to find that out.
Right. So when one appeals to sensory experience, you must assume the basic reliability.
I mean, if you want to go that route, fine. But I mean,
well, this is not
all I need for my worldview is to presuppose, or
right. But do you understand?
Presuppose
this is
the reality.
This is not a controversial point that I'm making. It's well recognized.
Yeah,
in
philosophy, right?
That one, from a philosophical point of view, one must assume the basic reliability of your sense perception. So is it the case that your basic sense perception is reliable?
Well, I don't know, and I don't need to assume that either.
Well, yeah, you do, because you just told
me. No, I don't.
Yeah, you do, because... No. All right, well, I'll explain it to you.
I mean, you can keep insisting all you want when I have to assume.
Well, I will
still
stop. I will stop insisting, but I'll explain it to you.
Okay, fine.
Because you appealed to sensory experience as confirmation of something else. You remember that?
Yeah, like how this reality is.
Right, but you see, you have a conceptual framework that how reality is has an accurate throughput into your sensory experience.
I mean, I should have said like the reality I experience.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the reliability. So the point is, when it comes to the nature of reality, you've got to rely on a collection of beliefs for which you don't have any evidence for.
No, not really, but okay.
Okay, so then you're asking for evidence in order to believe in the ultimate core belief, which would be God, right?
Okay, I have an idea. How about, like, instead of like going through this philosophically bullshit conversation, you go ahead and provide evidence for your worldview, and if you don't, okay, that's fine.
Well, the very evidence of the Christian God is the fact that without him, there can be no evidence.
All right. Well, that's a nice premise.
Right. Well, can there be
support for that?
Right. Okay. Can there be evidence for something, without it being the case that the God of the Bible exists?
Well, I haven't seen a good argument to say.
All right. Well. First of all, why do you need arguments for everything that you believe?
Like arguments, at least for most of the things I believe.
Okay. So God would be the ultimate core belief, would you say?
No.
Well, for theists, yeah.
No. I'm just saying, in terms of reality, it doesn't get any more core than that. Other than, let's say, if you hold to philosophical naturalism, that the only thing that exists is matter and energy, and in that worldview, those would be your core beliefs.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, like in theism, God is the ultimate source of everything else.
Right. So you want an argument for that. Now, so what you're then saying is, you want an argument for my core belief, which is X.
Right.
And X happens to be God.
Right.
Now, in the absence of a satisfying argument, you withhold belief that X is the case.
Right.
Now, in your worldview, in order for you even to communicate with me, in other words, for your words to be meaningful and intelligible, in order for you to be able to reason, you have to have some core beliefs about the nature of existence.
Yeah, and I do.
Okay, so what's the argument that nature operates in a law-like way?
Well, all the thousands of years worth of science, experimentation,
that's already been rebutted.
No, and it's not.
I'll I'll go over it again for you.
You could presuppose such a belief before doing science, but then you can do science and confirm that belief.
No, in fact, okay, listen, I'm not trying to sound condescending. This is just the way I talk with everybody.
I'm talking to my screen.
Right? So if it comes across this way, I
oh no, it's fine. Like it.
All right.
Yeah.
But you're quite mistaken, because when you say confirmation, what you're saying is confirmation in your worldview is only that which comports with your unjustified ultimate assumptions about the nature of existence. You don't have verification in your worldview.
What do you mean I don't have verification?
Well, I'm going to explain to you. I'm going to explain to you why that's not the case. No amount of future predictive success, like putting a man on the moon, doing scientific calculations to put a satellite, let's say, around Jupiter or Saturn, logically necessitates the uniformity of nature.
Bullshit.
It may be the case that where the uniformity of nature exists, that these future predictive...
Okay, he's going into woo-woo here. He's saying in order for you to get a rocket to Mars or Venus or Pluto or Jupiter or whatever the hell, and for it to have and for it to deploy a satellite around this planet, the uniformity of nature does not have to be the rule in the universe. In other words, you got no way to calculate how to send a rocket anywhere, how to get it to orbit another planet and have it slung out further out into the solar system. You have no idea how to do that, right? But the problem is we do. See, there's the difference between reality and Darth Dawkins. We have reality, and Darth Dawkins has his imagination. And he's trying to sell us his imagination over all of reality. I say good luck, Darth. Go ahead. Let's hear some more brilliance.
If expectations come true, but it may also be the case that all of those collective events are the product of chance. Even though it may be unacceptable to the way somebody views reality, there's no way to argue that chance cannot produce a specific sequence.
But didn't we establish earlier that you cannot have experience in a totally chance universe?
That's correct. So what I'm saying to you is that any future consideration...
So what he's saying is that in a chance universe, nothing makes sense. We can't have anything coherent. However, looking around, you might think, I don't think he's right. Look, my house is still here. It's full of furniture. The animals are playing. The sun is twinkling off the swimming pool. All this without God.
Consistencies that are based upon your supposition of the uniformity of nature can be produced by randomization as well. And the only reason why you hold to the uniformity of nature being confirmed is because it is entirely unacceptable that randomization accounts for those consistent sequences.
Like, it's an intuitive belief that seems to be, enjoy empirical support and inferential support.
Empirical support is circular in nature.
I mean, I don't think it's circular, but
it is. I'll explain.
No, it's not. No, it's not. So Darth Dawkins doesn't think. Oh shit! Sorry, he seemed to have disappeared. So sorry. There we go. So Darth Dawkins believes that rocket science is bullshit. There's no such thing as rocket science. So rocket science as a career or as an industry makes no sense, because you cannot have rocket science if the uniformity of nature isn't. If you can't predict what the rocket's going to do when it gets to Pluto, and you can't pre-program things based on the knowledge that you know of the cosmos, then how the hell are you going to get that rocket to do what you want? But the problem that Darth Dawkins seems to sort of overlook is that we do get the rockets to do what we want because of the uniformity of nature. This guy is, as Raymond Slade has just written, a dum-dum. Yeah.
I'll explain it to you.
Like, I think you were right when you said that, inductive arguments don't give you, like, logic conclusions that necessarily follow from the premises.
Right.
It gives you, it's more probabilistic arguments.
Well, in your worldview, you can't make a probabilistic argument. Do you know why?
Wow.
Because a probabilistic argument requires that you have access to the background information. Right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, have access to the
right. If you don't have access,
reality I experience. So.
Right. If you don't have access to the background information in order to make a probabilistic assessment, which you would have to know what the non-variables are, including the variables.
All right. So so far, you have yet to show evidence for.
All right. Well. First of all, we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. Right now, I'm showing you that you can't appeal to a probabilistic assessment, because in order to do a probabilistic assessment, you have to know what the non-variables are, things that are unchanging, right? So, for example, if I have a shoebox with ping pong balls in it, right, and I cut a hole in it, and there's 9 ping pong balls, you have access to the background information. You know that there are 9 ping pong balls numbered from 1 to 9. And the variable is you reach in and pull out 1 ball. Right? So you can make a probabilistic assessment. But if you don't know what the non-variables are and the variables are about a given scenario, you can't make a probabilistic assessment. In the case of the world,
well, this is the problem that he seems to. This is the hole he's dug himself into. You can know the variables of in rocket science. You can work them out. There is uniformity of nature, and that's how we can fill out the variables, and that's how we know that there's constants, and that's how we know that we can reach the stars if technology was with us. But we can reach the moon, we can reach Mars. We've sent these voyages out into, past the heliosphere now. So fuck you, and you need God for all this bullshit. Come on. I just want to also let you know about this particular conversation. This was held in the old style Hangout format, which today is called Google Meet. Up here, over here, there is the icon. So if you go to your Google Chrome, pull up your apps and click on that one, all you need then is a code, and I'll give you the code when we go live with the chat. I would do it now, so we could do it conjunctively and maybe do a group reaction, but unfortunately I can have one or the other. I can either have this playing, or I can have my Google Meet playing or active, because my system won't support, doesn't have the resource to support everything I really would like. So until that gets replaced. Until you buy me enough coffees, we will just do the best we can to not crash the system.
You're not in a position to demonstrate that anything is a non-variable.
Well, I mean, I could with sensory experience, like in your
excellent
example.
Okay. A non-variable would be something that is unchanging and absolute, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah.
Good.
I mean,
Name for me.
Constants, right? But
Name me what? No. Name me one absolute that you could begin to have background information to make a probabilistic assessment of physicality.
Speed of light.
Right. You have to have some absolutes.
Speed of light.
I give you
I say speed
some,
of light.
but you know,
Give
that
me
are inferred inductively.
Okay, but that's not necessarily the case, is it?
Planck length.
Right.
Okay, so you don't have access to the background information of what the non-variables are.
I mean, I don't see why it has to be like necessarily the case. Or I'm sorry, that was redundant. I don't see why it has to be the case.
What has to be the case?
You know, having an absolute.
Well,
you know,
if all right, okay, all right. If you live in a state of existence of physicality where there are no absolutes, and we just have everything as variables, everything is just changing.
All right, I see. I didn't make myself clear, but okay, carry on.
Okay, so without there being any absolutes, which would be non-variables, you can't assess a probabilistic assessment.
I mean, not fully, but you have something to work with.
No, you have to pin down certain absolutes.
Yeah, see, that's your OCD, but
No, it has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with OCD. If you're going to make a probabilistic, look, let me give you an illustration. I have a shoebox, right? Now, instead of there being 9 ping pong balls in there, there's never a fixed number when you reach in. At any given moment, ping pong balls are flowing in and flowing out. It's just ever changing. There's not an absolute non-variable of ping pong balls in there.
So, like, are these balls labeled 1 through 9?
No, I just explained to you in this new illustration, the
so
number of ping pong balls is ever changing. So that there's not an absolute number of ping pong balls. So you can't assess what the probability is of picking out a particular ping pong ball. Now, you said that you can confirm the uniformity of nature by a probabilistic assessment.
Or like, fine, like infer.
But you have no absolutes to support. Now, I'll tell you why you think that way. It's intuition, because from a let's say a non-Christian worldview, when you see a certain series of consistencies over a long period of time, and others do, they adopt the assumption that, remember, it's an assumption that if randomness were behind all of this, we would see exceptions and not consistencies without deviation. So it is an assumption about the way reality operates or physicality operates, an assumption that produces that conclusion. It is not that the observation demonstrates the conclusion. It doesn't. Your governing assumption is what produces your conclusion. It is? Okay. I'll show it to you it is.
Like, there's a difference between assumptions and inferences.
Okay. In terms of a random generation, is there any particular sequence that chance could not produce?
Okay, I want to say no.
All right, good. So whatever particular sequences you see, whether they appear to be ordered or not, consistent or not consistent, how are you able to determine that any series of consistencies are the product of necessity versus chance?
Well, I mean, you compare the two models, and the predictions that each one makes.
No, it doesn't matter. That doesn't work.
Like,
and here's why.
Like, do they make the same predictions?
No. Do you understand that chance can produce the same consistency? So if you have a model of the uniformity of nature and you make a prediction, it may comport with your model, but that doesn't logically necessitate that the model is the actual state of affairs.
Well, I mean,
unless you can show that your model and your model alone is the only one that can produce those sequences. But you can't offer that because you just conceded that chance can produce the same type of consistencies.
No, well, no, I'm not sure that chance can, but I mean, okay, like for the sake of argument, if both models made the same predictions, then yeah, I mean,
okay, look,
I don't see how you could tell one from the other.
Let me give you an illustration. I want you to imagine we're at the Scrabble manufacturing plant where they make Scrabble letters, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they come out in a linear fashion, and then they're sorted to be put in the Scrabble boxes. And I want you to imagine that there's an optical character recognition reading the letters as they come through one by one, but it's at very high speed. And all of that information is digitized. And so we now have a sequence of Scrabble letters that's, let's say, in the 100 million letters. So it doesn't matter what the number is, right? Now, what's the probability of those? Let's say I'll simplify it. 1 million letters in a row. What's the probability that by chance that particular sequence would occur?
Wait, did you say the same letter in a row? 1 million?
No. They're just random letters.
Okay, random letters. Okay.
Okay. So you could sit down and say, okay, we got 26 letters.
Right.
For each letter, it's 1 in 26. So for the letters to be X, J, and B, it would be 1 in 26 times 26 times 26. But when it comes to 1 million letters in a row, that would be
even lower.
It would be beyond astronomical. It would be inconceivably astronomical. Would be insignificant compared to what the improbability would be. Okay, but you see, that particular sequence still occurred,
right?
But through what we would generalize as a randomization.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a particular sequence that we locate, or that we agree upon, whatever that is, or consistencies. If you're going to say that chance couldn't produce those consistencies, then you're going to have to explain why. And if you don't, then we're stuck with that chance can produce the same type of consistencies. So why do you opt that necessity produces these consistencies that we call physics and chemistry rather than chance? Well, the reason why is because if you don't, then your world will be utterly meaningless. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think like the chance model made predictions that are falsified by the observational evidence.
No, a chance model cannot be falsified. And by the way, it's not a good idea to resort to the falsification concept because it's easily destroyed. Right? So getting back to what I was asking you about evidence, since you do not accept that it is the case, you do not accept the Bible as the revelation of God and how he has constructed this world, you claim that there can be evidence for things. But you have no capacity to demonstrate that you exist in a world where there can be evidence.
Well, I mean, I see evidence for that proposition. Yeah.
Okay, you're going to have to establish that certain prerequisites are true in order to have evidence for things.
Right.
One of those is going to be the reality of the external world. You can't appeal to sensory perception, because if the external world were an illusion, you would have the, quote, same sensory experience, so to speak, the same psychic phenomenon. Number two, you're going to have the uniformity of nature must be the case. But you have no argument for it. Since you want an argument for God as the ultimate core belief, what's your argument for the uniformity of nature? Well, you told me it was an appeal to empirical endeavors, but I demonstrated
an inductive argument.
Inductive arguments are not logically necessary.
Yeah, there's still arguments though.
No, they are. It's an appeal. Okay, no, it's an appeal.
I mean, you don't
right.
If you want to accept the argument, that's fine, but
well, it's not logic. The conclusion is not logically necessary.
We already established that. So
okay, so in deductive arguments, a valid argument whose premises are true is logically necessary.
Right. Yeah.
But inductive reasoning, the conclusion is not logically necessary.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
what?
you could appeal to an inductive inference, but that conclusion is not logically necessitated. So you want to come along and say, give me evidence for the Christian worldview or the Christian God or the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Well, I submit to you, you can't have evidence for anything unless the God of the Bible exists. And if you say you don't accept that, then tell me how you can have evidence.
Have a cause and effect universe, purely naturalistic with no God in it.
How are you omniscient?
No.
How do you know that there is a cause and effect relationship between any two events?
Empirical evidence and induction.
No. Do you know who?
Okay, fine.
You know who David Hume was?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a Scottish atheist and a brilliant philosopher. And he destroyed. You must assume that any two events have a causal relationship. Now, how would you have evidence for causal relationships? Well, the answer is you can't have any. You have to assume it.
All right. So, I don't recall David Hume ever saying that. I mean, he did speak on the problem of induction, but it went differently
and
than what
the problem of induction plagues your claim, plagues the problem of claiming that there are causal relations between events.
But his argument wasn't that induction could never work. It's that it has its limits.
That's not the point that I was making.
Yeah.
So how can there be evidence for anything in your worldview? What has to be true?
We already established that. We've been through this a couple times.
Yeah, no, but your claims were rebutted and debunked.
I mean, we can pretend they were okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go over it again with you if you like.
You know what? Okay, let's do this. I'll concede all your points. Okay, now give me evidence for God.
Okay. Well, the evidence of God is the very fact that we're having a meaningful conversation here today. The evidence of God is that there can be evidence and reason at all. And if you laugh at that, then you are supposing that you can have evidence and reason without God.
Okay, so we can have evidence and reason, therefore God, or is that more of an inductive argument?
No. God is a necessary precondition for all intelligibility and meaningfulness. And if you object to that, then show me how you can have meaningfulness for anything without God.
You show me your arguments.
Well, I just gave it to you. I said God is the necessary precondition for all intelligibility and meaningfulness. right?
Okay,
We have intelligibility and meaningfulness. We haven't. I'm trying to give it to you, and you're talking over me. Okay, the God of the Bible is the necessary precondition for all meaningfulness and intelligibility. Premise 2, we have meaningfulness and intelligibility. Conclusion, therefore the God of the Bible exists.
All right, so like,
now you're gonna have to debunk premise.
You're gonna have to give support for each of your premises.
I did, because you see, without an omniscient, you can laugh all you want. You see,
No, I mean, I'm sorry. That's pretty fucking stupid. Okay.
Okay.
So I mean, don't blame me for laughing.
Okay.
I mean,
well, you can laugh all you can all laugh all you want, but I'm going to embarrass your position right now. Right now, in order for there to be meaningfulness and intelligibility, you would have to have interpretation of facts, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, you would have to have a mind.
And it just can't be any. It can't be any interpretation, right?
I guess, right?
So the interpretation would have to be, in some respects, correct. Now, when you do not accept that it is the case that the God of the Bible exists, and that's a de facto denial of the God of the Bible, you have no capacity within your position to articulate the meaningfulness of any fact. Because if you do, I'm going to ask you what the prerequisites are for that meaningfulness. And you're not going to be able to establish that the prerequisites exist. Right?
No, I don't agree. But...
Okay. So let me get back a little bit. You brought up empiricism. Okay? Empiricism does not verify the uniformity of nature. One must assume that the uniformity of nature is the case in order to invoke the even meaningfulness of an empirical endeavor. So if you appeal to empirical endeavors and any future predictive successes, right, as verifying the uniformity of nature, it's a circular argument. Because
Green Soul, do you want to jump in? I mean, because I'm about to leave.
Yeah. Well, I've just demonstrated to you the bankruptcy of atheism.
No, you.
Yeah. Well, you have no foundation.
And you gave none.
You
gave either logically.
What evidence?
Logically valid arguments.
How can there
premises
logically invalid?
So I mean,
so in other words,
done
there are logical. There are laws of thought.
No, I'm not gonna listen to this.
Of course you're not, because
I gave you. I mean, how long have you been talking, man? I gave you all these chances to do it, and you did not. So, bye-bye, my primitive friend.
No, I'm not primitive. Okay, you can giggle. You can giggle like a teenager. You just talk about I committed logical fallacies. That presupposes that there are laws of thought. What laws of thought?
Yeah, there are.
What are they?
I think we both know what they are. The 3 laws of logic.
Okay?
Law of identity.
Right. What does the word law refer to? Does it refer to that it is absolute and universal?
Yeah.
And how would you be able to verify that they are absolute and universal?
You ran them off.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason why it ended that way is because you
keep repeating the same thing over and over again. You just keep rewording the same thing over and over again, and you're trying to just force it down his throat.
Yeah, well, he had no answer for his own worldview. None whatsoever.
Well, you don't. I mean, when you present this idea that there's no basis for logic without God, you're creating circular reasoning because you can't be aware of God without having an experience first. So that would mean there's no basis for anything in any worldview ever.
Oh, I'm not opposed to all circular reasoning. I'm just opposed.
Yeah, just the one that supports your Bible.
May I finish? Because I would like to have an intelligent.
You've had so long already. Don't you get that? Do you ever listen to anybody besides yourself talk?
Right.
It's hard for me to believe you when you say you know about these things and you've learned about these things when you never listen to anyone.
Oh, I listen.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. That's why I respond.
See, now you're acting like a 12-year-old. Yeah, you do. No, I don't. Yeah, see, you are doing it again. This is what you do.
And why is that a problem in your worldview?
You acted like it was a problem when I did it. You're the one who proposes it's a problem.
That's because I am holding to the position.
Okay, if you hold to that, then why do you not see it's a problem when you do it?
Well, actually, I don't do what you do.
You do. You just did.
All right, I'm not going to waste my time.
I know. Now you're going to run off like heathens because you got proven wrong. You can't take criticism. You can't ever admit that you did something. You oppose something that you did yourself, and you won't admit it.
Okay. The problem I have with you is and how many times
the problem you have with me is I'm right.
We've conversed probably about, I would say,
and you never listen. You should just go, yeah, Outbound, I know you're right. You proved me wrong.
And
be an adult and admit you were wrong.
Okay.
Just grow up. Come on, stop acting like a 12-year-old.
I'm not gonna wait.
Stop trolling me. Stop trolling me.
Green Soul, did you want to get in on the conversation? I guess not.
Wasn't that classic? That was classic. So that was Darth Dawkins, an hour with Darth Dawkins. He didn't run away. He let people talk. He spewed the same nonsense that he has been spewing for 10 years on the debate circuit, if there's such a thing. So that was actually recorded in July of 2017. So since July of 2017, you will have noticed that Darth Dawkins has unfortunately become even more unstable. So you might also notice, very possibly, that the hello room, is open. So essentially, you open up your Google Meet, click on the link that's up on the top of the screen, open your Google Meet. There we go. And enter the code. The code is I posted the code. It's on the screen. It's in the description. It's I hope it's the right. Jeez, imagine if I post the wrong. Yeah, that is the right. I hope. Let's see. Something copied it. Oh, yes. All is well. Communications are nominal. So seriously, can anyone take this Darth Dawkins character seriously? Honestly, like, how much longer is he gonna stay as kind of the class clown? I mean, it's all clown. Yeah. So I think what I'm going to do, my format is starting to become a little bit clearer to me. My format is always going to be the objective of every live stream should be and will be to open up exactly this room, a chat room, discussion room, which is this. So my gamble, of course, is that people will come in and we'll have a discussion, and it'll carry on for as long as it's interesting. Or alternatively, nobody comes in. I wait. I don't know. As long as I've got nothing to say, until I've got nothing to say, which hopefully is never. But I'll try and be disciplined. I want to talk about something that that I find really hilarious. I find it extremely hilarious. Yesterday, I was watching J.L. Warren talking to, I think it was Tom Rabbit. So I'm watching and listening to J.L. Robin talking to Tom Rabbit, and they're talking about Darth Dawkins, specifically Darth Dawkins. And at some point in the conversation, my ears prick up. My name is being mentioned, right? So it seems this is what it looks like. It looks like Tom Rabbit can put up all the videos he likes that show Darth Dawkins being an idiot. And J.L. Warren can brilliantly dissect Darth Dawkins for being the intellectual buffoon that he is. But in both cases, what you say to Darth Dawkins harms Darth Dawkins' family. So please don't come and say that Sidney Winston is sort of stepping over the line by saying things about Darth Dawkins that is over the line because it brings his family in. Yeah? Well, when you dissect Darth Dawkins and his family watches you dissect Darth Dawkins and show what an incredible clown this man is, do you think that's causing his family's well-being? I just think that I needed to say that because I thought that was kind of uncalled for. I think all you're doing is drinking the zeitgeist Kool-Aid. So stop it. Now, Raymond, welcome. Your mute button's on. I can't hear you. Raymond, you're muted, sir. Might as well listen to some tunes until Raymond unmutes. Don't rush to unmute, Raymond. We're good. Raymond left. Must be having. Oh, he's calling in from, looks like Cape Town, South Africa. My old stomping grounds. See, what might get kind of boring is if Raymond comes in here, and he's from Cape Town, where I grew up, and he's from the area. We know the same stuff. You know, I might get melancholic and start mentioning stuff, and you guys will get bored. But I'll do me. Apparently that's a thing these days. I do I. You do you, and I do I. And I do I is going to be the first slogan that I put on any merchandise that I might or might not be selling. What do you think? I do I? Problem with connection and you couldn't unmute. Okay, well, try again, Raymond. Give it another shot. Give it another shot, sir. You can't do it, Raymond. You can't do it. I don't think I've ever met Raymond before, and it will be interesting to hear from the other side of the world. You know what, Raymond? You could also call in with a phone number. All right? You want me to give you the phone number? Okay. I'll give the phone number. And I'll... all phone numbers. There we go. Okay. Hang tough there, my buddy. Hang tough. Okay, so... South Africa. Okay, there's South Africa. South Africa. Copy. Okay, so let me see if this is going to work. I am giving you, sir, a phone number that you can call in South Africa, and a code that you can use if I can find the chat, which I can't. So, there we go. Very good. I hear you. I hear you. Are you on the phone or on your computer?
What did I do? Is it working?
No, you're good. Just that if you're having problems, you can call in with the phone. I'll give you the number in 1 second. Actually, I'll put the number down inside chat here, okay? See if you can hear it. See if you can see it. It's coming up. It's coming.
I can see and hear you, but can you hear me?
Okay, then you're listening to your YouTube channel. Turn the sound off your YouTube channel, or turn off your YouTube channel because you're watching it right here.
Yeah, I've exited that window and I've only got you and this window open.
Okay, I just sent you a chat. You might be able to see it, you might not, but you should be able to see it. And it's got the telephone number and then the code, the PIN number. So if you call from a telephone, you should get, you shouldn't have to worry about... Now, I don't know if 27 for you is a local number or not, or if it's chargeable or not. We must have a lag. It's okay, we got a lag.
Well, can you kind of hear me, or?
Yes, perfectly.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on my laptop. Oh, okay, and I'm on my laptop and everything. Sorry, bro.
You could call in by...
Yeah?
You could call in using a phone, a telephone. I have put the number in the chat. It's on the screen if you look at the screen.
Yeah, but my phone's charging and like I'm always just gonna like down me and everything.
Okay, well, whatever.
I'm getting you, but you...
Oh, Lauren, it's...
You what? You hear me, bud? Oh, you know what it is? My gain is too high. Hold on a second. I think that's the problem. Just give me 1 minute.
No, your level is fine. It's just you like roboting and garbled.
Right.
I think it's my laptop because I had some of the crap.
No, I can...
No, your level...
Is that better now, the level, or is it the same?
No, your level is perfect.
Oh, okay.
It's just the sound is garbled and like nobody. Like,
We have broadband bottleneck somewhere.
I'm on like quite fast fiber here, but I mean my laptop is bloody old and stupid, you know.
That's okay. Just talk slow and close to the mic. And then we should be all right.
I've got good earphones and the mic on my earphone.
If you put earphones in, it'll solve all your problems in the world.
They've been in all the time and it doesn't seem to be healthy.
You got them in now?
I don't have any other browser windows open. Right, speak again.
Do you have your headphones in right now?
It's cool. Same.
Mm-hmm.
You sound still the same for me.
I
think it's my
well, actually let me listen to myself for a bit in the feed, and let me see if it's me, because it could be me. Could be the camera. Hold on, let me just turn the camera.
It's coming up. It's coming. I can see and hear you, but can you hear me? Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay, then
cameras.
you're listening to your YouTube channel. Turn the sound off your YouTube channel.
Your level is perfect. It's just
or turn off your YouTube channel
The
because
sound's
you're watching
coming
it
perfectly
perfectly through from YouTube. I got to turn off things so that I'm not roboting.
I don't even have.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't have YouTube open. I've just got like a.
Yeah, that's perfect. If you don't have YouTube open, well, you don't have YouTube open. The only thing you're missing is the outside chat. You know, the YouTube chat. So tell me about Raymond Slade.
What do you want to know?
Oh, okay. Well, where were you born, and how far from where you were born are you living now?
I was born in Joburg, 72, but then around about a year or 2 years old, it ended up in Durban. You remember old Durban.
I sure do.
And then I was pretty much there my whole life. So I'm a Durban now. And then now I'm in Cape Town, yeah.
In Cape Town now?
Throwing Durban down. Yeah.
How long you been in Cape Town?
Since about 2010, we moved here because the main reason is I wanted my daughter out of Durban because things going down there with like the
Is that
universities
Jacob Zuma territory?
Kind of.
All the cuck that went down, you know, during the summit, during your winter time, with the looting and the burning and the craziness, seems to have just sort of been either swept under the carpet or it's all been resolved. You know, all this shortages of food and destruction of places to shop and this and that. Well, I haven't heard of any riots since then. What happened?
No, you're right. No, you're right. It's all completely disappeared, like it never even happened, and no one's hardly talking about it anymore.
How can that be?
Because that's exactly what happens here. They do sweep stuff under the rug.
They do, don't they?
But funnily enough, you know that none of that happens in Cape Town, because Durban, Pretoria, Joburg, all of that is all the ANC stuff and the EFF, and there's no ANC in that.
Well, Cape Town's mostly whites and coloreds, and I don't think that the African blacks are as much. You know, I guess what they call black in South Africa.
Yeah, there's a bit more variety of the black people where there's like a lot of Zimbabweans.
Yeah, but the history of the Cape, has been variety from day one. Because look at the colored population of Cape Town. Look how many they are. Right?
Yeah.
Now, why they should be segregated is beyond me.
I think it goes back to what you said about the history thing, because it's historically always been the more the Zulu and Xhosa have all been the Joburg and Durban area. You know?
Exactly. They've been
And
killing
like
each
you say,
other
with history,
for centuries.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the black people here are a lot more kind of calmer. They're not as bombastic as the Zulus in Joburg and Durban. And that. They're a lot more to themselves, and things are a bit more clean here and everything. You don't mess with the colours anyway. The colours are cool, but they like
The colors are so cool, though. What's to mess with? I love the colors because it was from the colors that I learned a lot about life. They're really sensitive people. Well, actually, everyone in South Africa, when you get to know them, is a very sensitive person. Sorry, at the same time?
Yeah, and at the same time, they're really cool, and at the same time, you also don't want to fuck with them, you know. If you get on their wrong side, they'll fuck you up.
They'll fuck you up, for sure.
When you're on when you're on their good side, you're on their good side. They're like
well, look, yeah,
I think...
You think?
I think that's why things are calmer, because all the black people are calmer, because I think they know that the colored crew are like they're the O's who are here first, and you don't fuck with them, kind of thing, you know.
Absolutely.
And
you feel, I guess, because you're in the Cape, you must feel relatively safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. There's good stuff happening here. There's crime and everything. And if you go back to the college, you don't mess with them. There's a lot more gang stuff happening here. But yeah, it's definitely safer, especially with police, because Durban and that, there's a lot of black police, and they might have a bit of their racism on them, and they've got a bit of bias. Whereas here in Cape Town, you've got a mixture of black and white and coloured police. No one's got any bias, and everyone does their job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Objectively, they're not like kind of driven by any racist bias like the police in Durban and Joburg and that. So yeah, it's a lot more kind of objective and
I don't know,
playing
man.
ground.
When I lived there, I didn't go back for something like 25 years or something, maybe 30 years. I can't remember. A long time back. And when I did go back, there was that same scully tension in the air that I didn't like. You know, waiting at, when you stopped your car at the traffic lights, they're sitting there staring at you, looking for a way, just looking for one small weakness that they can come and either do something to you or your car, or grab something from your car. It was one big anxiety. Cape Town. Well,
not
at least on the roads.
Not much of that now.
Say it again?
Yeah, for sure. I get it. But, not much of that now. It's pretty. Like I say, everyone treats each other the same kind of thing. You know what I mean?
How come there's so much crime in the townships, and it's like brutal, people slaying each other? This is every day. And why are the townships in the first place?
Because it's more like a free-for-all vibe there, as opposed to in the city areas. Yeah, people are a bit more behaved, and everyone's everyone sort of like respects each other.
Do you think?
And it's not just a Cape Town thing. It's the same in Durban and Joburg and that, you know.
Do you think it would have been a good idea for the Chinese to have come into South Africa and built apartments like crazy, in crazy quantities of apartments, like they do in China, like they do in Africa, other places? Why didn't they do that in South Africa, so that everybody would have somewhere decent to live?
I don't know. Hey, I'm a little bit ignorant on all of that, but what I am noticing of late is there's a lot of development and building of the duplex, simplex kind of buildings, those blocks of flats kind of things.
Where?
There's in all that you see anywhere, but they're the duplex, simplex kind of blocks.
Well, you know what? I
There's a,
haven't been
there's a lot of
I haven't been in South Africa for
there's a
nearly
lot.
20 years now, so I don't.
Yeah,
I'm,
no, there's a lot of that happening at the moment. There's a lot of those like springing up here and there. So
same here.
it does seem to be a lot of,
Must be everywhere because same here.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know, but I'm really a bit ignorant of the China thing. I think that's happening more with commerce and like technology industry stuff. Like there's a big thing in Durban at the moment where there's a thing called China malls.
What's
I don't know if
that?
you know what the China mall
No,
is.
I never heard of it.
Like it's like a big like shopping center kind of thing. It's not like a smart kind of mall, but it's like just a big shopping center and it's all kind of Hong Kong stuff, you know, generic kind of tech stuff or TV stuff or your, your computers or whatever, or cell phone stuff. A lot of Muslims have got their shops there where they've got their cell phone repair places and stuff like that. I'm seeing more of that as opposed to home development thing, at least in the Durban area. But in Cape Town, there's a lot of home development happening at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. There's a
It's
lot
just
of home development seems to
springing
be.
up everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about the Chinese. I was watching a documentary the other day on the Chinese. They built like a huge. They almost created a town. There were so many apartments, and they were all empty. Like if they'd have just done the same thing all over South Africa, it would be like, it would solve a huge problem if there was a partnership between the communists of China and the South African Communist Party, which essentially is the ANC, to create homes. I don't understand why that was absolutely and totally overlooked and has been for the last 25 or so years. Why?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It is weird. You're right. It's weird.
Nobody gives a fuck about people, especially governments and any authority.
I can't think of. Yeah, I think employment is a problem to start off with, and then if people don't have money, then they can't get their homes. So employment seems to rather be the first issue. And things are still very divided there. And, the tables are turned.
If the government has all that money to spend on giving it to the Guptas, then they can afford to hire China to go and come in and build all the houses that they need to house the homeless, to replace the shanty towns, to replace the shithole townships. They don't care about their people.
Yeah, but another factor is a lot of influx of Zimbabweans and Nigerians and Botswana people have been coming in, and funnily enough, the townships that are growing are not growing from the South African black people, but they are growing from the influx of non-South African black people.
What?
So there's obviously
I remember the townships from when I was a young boy in South Africa. Okay, when I went back as a middle-aged man, the townships were there. They were much bigger, but they looked the same. The only difference, they seem to have, like, poles with electricity and TV, and like they had some amenities, or should I say they had some utilities. I can't speak for the sewerage because it really didn't look like there was. It was designed. Anything was designed to be on any kind of a system.
Still the same here. That's still a problem here, especially the one township is like literally down the road from me. And when the people need to go in the toilet and stuff, they're going across the road into the bushes and that.
Of course.
And it's very sad.
Where are you going to go?
Even the kids.
You gotta go. If the government doesn't want to provide you a toilet and they'd rather put the money into their children's trust fund, then you get what you pay. You get what you vote for, buddy.
Yeah, but now, funnily enough, these are not South African black people. That's the majority, or quite.
Yeah, but they don't vote.
Dominated by.
They don't vote.
Well, that's you see, here's the funny thing. This is why it looks like they've been allowed into the country in such huge numbers, so that these then EFFs or the ANCs can try and rely on these new people to vote because they're just creating more numbers. Meanwhile, they aren't actually South African. They're Nigerian or
Yeah, but if they're not
Zimbabwean
South
or
African, they can't vote in a federal election. Is my point.
yeah, true. So that's what's very messy at the moment. What's going on? I don't know. At the end of the day, I can't say much on all of this because I'm actually quite apolitical, to be honest. I'm really quite ambivalent about politics.
Okay. So you're more into the commerce, you said? Commerce side of
No, I'm more into.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm more into what we do. I'm more into these debates and philosophy and science and all that. You know, I don't.
Oh, I'm talking about for a living.
Those are the things. Oh no, I'm still battling and I still do my music. We're still battling with any musical.
Oh, you're a musician?
Stuff because.
Oh, shame.
Yeah, because of COVID and that, there's still no club stuff happening and there's no festivals and all that. I'm doing a little bit of movie work here and there with the extras, and that's picking up now.
Then I have now I remember speaking to you before. Since as soon as you said that, I remember I've spoken to you. Yes, now I remember.
I haven't been on then since when I first met.
That was months and months ago.
Yeah, because I've been trying to download and install the Discord app as opposed to doing it on the browser, and it's giving me.
Yeah, but this is not Discord.
Idea. No, I'm saying that's why I haven't been back on Discord looking for you.
Oh, I don't go on Discord ever. Discord is for children.
Huh?
Discord is for young teenagers and old grumpy men like Darth Dawkins.
Yeah, but it was my first time, and it was my only thing that I came across.
Wow, but is that long ago that you saw me on Discord?
Yeah.
Wow, that was a long time ago, dude. Because I honestly have not gone on Discord for months, and probably not for years.
No, it was a couple of months ago, and it was you and the European guy. I forget his name.
Oh, that was a Pio. Pio. Yeah, no, that was definitely not Discord. That would have been either on Jitsi or this. I don't know. Listen, I'm old. I don't know. Maybe I got a bad memory. I just don't think it's Discord. So let's go there. There's a slight possibility that it might be Discord based on my memory.
Yeah, because if I open it right now, your room is still there with your same
everything's still there.
That's our picture thing.
Yeah, my server's still there. I just haven't. It could be hacked for all I know. But anyway, I haven't even gone to my server for the same amount of time. I haven't gone to Discord. But other than that, it's for. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, with Dum Dum, the two biggest things that are a thing for me, and I'd love to ask him about, is why have you turned worldviews into this kind of matter of fact thing when worldview by definition is a subjective thing.
Yes, good one.
Why? And also, he likes to appeal a lot to metaphysics when also metaphysics is subjective, and we can't make.
There's no such thing as metaphysics. I still don't understand what he means by metaphysics.
Metaphysics is just our abstract sort of non-material physical way of explaining stuff.
Well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Non-material physics. How can you explain stuff that doesn't exist?
Yeah, that's exactly why when Darth Dawkins had that debate with Massimo Puluji, something named guy, the one philosopher, And he, as soon as Darth Dawkins was speaking about, oh, what's your metaphysical grounding for this and that, he quickly said, well, why are you talking about metaphysics? Anything you claim and do from metaphysics is unfalsifiable. And then Darth.
Yeah, it's all imaginary. You can't falsify an imagination. You can't falsify the product of an imagination. God, the creator God, is a product of the imagination. Of course you can't falsify it. Still with us? Oh, I don't know if we got communication with Raymond. What I could do is make it a little bit less boring, if you like. Yeah, I thought so.